Well met. This has been Brode, and you're watching Born to be
Cosmo.
Oh, snap.
Cosmo.
Welcome to Born to be Cosmo, a podcast where we discuss all things Marvel Snap. And it has been 2 weeks since we discussed all things Marvel Snap, and of course, a ton has happened. And we've been talking about it in our group chat quite extensively. And the result is tonight's show that I'm quite excited about. And this was your brainchild, Nate. Balance Patch Bingo. So,
oh gosh. Well, I mean, I ran with it, but it wasn't my idea. But I'm really excited because I like being able to do these Photoshop projects from time to time, and it's been a while for me. So we kind of like Zombie started it, and I was like, oh hey, can I put this in Photoshop? Like I used to make them for Hearthstone, and it had been a minute, and it's like, oh
I had no idea you did that too. Blue was telling me, I was like, oh really? Because I just thought it'd be a fun little idea, and then Nate whips out the top tier Photoshop skills and makes it look really legit. It's great.
Thanks. I'm excited to share it with everybody tonight. It'll be fun. We had the brain trust working on this bingo card, and it's pretty funny.
I think people will get a kick out of it. It's if you've been keeping up with the snap balance changes over the past few months and weeks, you might notice some things on there that we've seen before and we'll probably see again.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fun way to predict what's going to come in the upcoming patch, rather than kind of just spitballing our predictions, we'll be able to score ourselves once it's all said and done. So it also sets us up for our next episode as well, which is great because the less arranging and preparing I have to do, the better off we'll be, since I am eternally slacking on my responsibilities. But before we talk about the balance patch, there was some news that I think warrants a discussion. I'm really curious to hear your reactions, and that's surrounding series drops. So, once upon a time, we had cards enter in at Series 5 on a fairly set schedule. They fell to Series 4 and Series 3. Fast forward to flexible series drops, the Spotlight cache system, and series drops just stopped. And, a lot of people made a lot of noise. And as time went on, I think that the chorus grew louder just because the silence on the part of Second Dinner in terms of what their plans were was deafening. Well, we got some news on November 20th, so a few days ago, that they're going to have more info for us by the end of the year. I think this is something that we've all been waiting for, right? With some anxiety, what's going to be with series drops.
Yeah, I mean, we all kind of started dunking on it, right? That was like, oh, the news is we're no longer doing series drops. Like, I mean...
Yeah, December 31st, 11:59 for release, series drops are no longer happening.
Yeah, this was a hotly contested debate at Second Dinner, and after much deliberation, we've decided to no longer do series drops. Stay tuned next year for more information.
Now, part of me doesn't believes that something like that could happen, but I'm hoping that the fact that they said anything at all after such a delay, Series 6, I'm hoping, I don't know, I think this one's a 50-50, right? I mean, the cynic in me wants to believe that nothing will be to my benefit or to the community's collective benefit, but the optimist in me hopes just for something that will put the wind at our back for a change.
New series, Big Jeff. Jeff has been moved to Series 5 to the Big Jeff tier.
Oh gosh, yeah. Jeff has been moved to Series 6, and they're no longer. Yeah, we've created a new tier. No, I don't know. I mean, I think that they pretty much have to, right? Because as people have been, it's been noticeable. Like you can dance around it for a month or 2 or 3, but at a certain point, it's like, all right. It has been too long, and I think I think Lauren whatever was tracking for a little while, like, hey, at what point, based on your collection level, these collector caches or whatever they're called, spotlight caches, keys, like where does it all balance out? But now, because they haven't done series drops for such a long time, we're at a point where it's very odd. Like last episode, we're sitting here scratching our heads, like, am I gonna open that series like Spotlight Cash or not? Because nothing's dropping, and I
you might
don't.
get Gladiator for the second week in a row.
Oh my god, don't get me started. I was so mad. I was so mad. So, all right, for the little bit of context here, and this is one of like the worst feel bads things about the current system, right? Is that random slot. So there are 3 cards a week, and if you have the cards replaced by a variant, but that darn random slot is like the bane of everyone's existence, because instead of getting a new card or a cool variant, you get 1,000 tokens, which is nothing. 1,000 tokens does very, very little for you in the grand scheme of
I'm
things.
surprised they don't give you 750 just because it's.
Hey, be careful what you wish for. That might be in the announcement. But yeah, so that's been a bad thing for a while. But that you're getting those 1,000 in place of a card, it being a card you already had. So the more cards you get, the more likely you're going to get a duplicate, right? And as someone who has most of the cards, not all, but missing like 2 or 3 cards or whatever, I never expect to get anything out of that slot because the odds are very stacked against me, especially when the cards you're missing are Series 5 cards. Because if you don't know, the chance of your random slot pulling a Series 4 or a Series 5 is weighted. It's 66% chance to pull a Series 4 card and 33% chance to pull a Series 5 card. So 2-to-1 odds, you're going to get a Series 4 and not a Series 5. Last week, I decided, even though I know he was bad, I was really bored, and I had Spotlight saved up, so I said, I'm going to gamble 2 Spotlights. I like the variants, but I wouldn't open for the variants on their own. But I wanted to meme around with Gladiator, even though I was fully aware after watching the card for a few days, it's not a very good card right now. But the animation's cool.
I want it
and
too. I mean, I do. If that makes you feel
it's a
any
fun
better, but
meme card, right? And it was really just boredom. I was kind of bored and I wanted something new to mess with, and that's how they get you. So I got lucky and I got it in 2 caches, and I was like, all right, that's I was fine with my decision. And then this week came around, and I wanted all the things in this week, because the Rian Gonzalez variants, new card I wanted, just one of the better opening weeks for me. And I hit that random slot on the second pull, and wouldn't you know it, it's Gladiator, because it shows you what card you got before it converts. And I'm like, what a kick in the teeth. I'm going to remember this the next time I'm bored and I'm thinking of passing on a week. I'm like, nah, I'm good, because I'll just high roll and get it, and then I'll be punished for wasting resources. And it feels really bad. It was just it turned like if I decided to not use any resources, it turned what would have been a really positive moment into a moment that made me feel really bad.
So I want to channel this for a second.
That.
So you had your really bad experience opening the spotlights. We haven't heard forever about series drops, which has been increasing, dissatisfaction. People voicing their concern. It feels like it all kind of culminated in a single tweet this morning made by Raven. Raven, who used to cast Hearthstone high level for all the official events, now plays Snap. I think Raven streams also. I don't.
Yep.
But
streams.
In the UK, so I'm usually like not awake at that time. Anyways, he tweeted, a photo of Twitch, I assume filtered by the English language at a UK friendly time, and there was basically no one streaming Snap. A couple of very small creators with single digit views, and basically I believe the question that was being asked just through a picture is like, is this a problem? And I think that judging from my experience with Hearthstone and also a little bit of Runeterra when I was playing that for a couple months, people I find value Twitch views very highly, but I don't know if it really translates to being a good thing or a problem, especially when there's
not for the
gimme.
overall health of the game. Basically, like, it's not a good metric to have like a sense on, hey, is the game doing well? Hey, is the game doing poorly? Especially, I think, for a mobile game. I don't think Twitch is like the end all be all, but it also does tell us something that I think is valuable, which is, the people who are dedicated enough in terms of like playing the game, a lot of them aren't really playing it as much right now as they were, a month, 2 months, 3 months ago. Like I saw quite a few big Snap streamers on today, and none of them were streaming Snap. I saw Harry was playing Arclight Rumble. I think Raven was too.
It's just Rumble Zombies.
But like
Arclight
people are playing
Rumble.
different games, and as someone who is, yeah, I know, keep forgetting they changed that.
Everyone does. I just find it funny that they.
It is.
Anyways.
But
Well,
it's telling, right? Like for those who were with me last year, I did that thing where I streamed every day for the month of December, and it was, it was a good time. I enjoyed it. I want to do it again this year, but I'm just like, unless things change very dramatically with the patch, I have a hard time imagining wanting to stream that much Snap with the things the way they are at this current moment. Because I dislike Loki very greatly. That's just something that is very frustrating to me to play against. It's not an enjoyable experience.
Although counterpoint, on Friday, 2 days ago, you were in my stream for like 4 hours, and then collectively we were in yours for the next 6. So that's kind of a pretty hefty session.
I blame alcohol for that.
Ah.
I even tweeted it out.
Alright.
I said, hey, Snap is a lot more fun when you are white girl wasted and do not care. And I will stand by that statement. But however, streaming every day for 30 days, I'd prefer not to become an alcoholic just to enjoy Marvel Snap.
Fair enough.
It's very stale is the problem, I think, because there's just like Loki is just ridiculous, and so I got tired of losing. And I was like, well, I've got all these daily quests and I kind of want to win and I would like to get another Infinity ticket. And I was like, well, screw it. I'll just play Loki. And like, it was like you get to play the good card. Like you play your opponent stuff, but you get to play more cards and they cost less. And so I was playing against like a destroy deck, right? And it's like, cool, on the last turn, I'll play a 49 powered null and something else because why not? Like, and death and whatever else. It was like, it's ridiculous. So just play.
Like, thanks for doing all the work. I'll play your cards now. I appreciate the effort.
Well, a couple days after the last show, you were still in the 90s. You hadn't hit infinite yet. This was like a little less than 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
You were kind of trying different things, and finally you just you got frustrated, and you're like, I just want to get this over with. And I think it was NHL or Zombies was like, just play Loki. And you were like, really, I should just play Loki? I don't know how to play it. I've never. I think they gave you the list. And
I've played
less than a day. Like, yeah, you just like a few hours later, you're like, okay, I did the thing. I'm done.
Yeah, we played a little bit at night because the list had switched, right? It had switched up a little bit. We're running werewolf now, and stuff, and I played a few games. I think we were all on, and it was like, all right, cool. We got close, but whatever. And then we're like, all right, we'll regroup and finish the climb tomorrow. And I got up the next morning and had some free time, and I jumped on the iPad and like I just did it in like half an hour. It was crazy. So yeah, it's the quote from Harvey Dent from the Batman movie, right? You either live long enough to become the what is it, die the hero, or live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Yep.
So,
which is kind of ironic for no spoilers. Anyone who's watched the recent Loki show.
But is Loki really the villain? I thought Professor.
That's
X
why it's. That's fair. Depends who you ask.
Yeah.
So I got it anyways. It's like playing on easy mode. I mean, I hate to say it, but you just
bowling with the side things up.
Werewolf is a difficult card to play correctly. Like, you're not just dumping your hand every turn. You have to be strategic about it. But
it punishes you hard too if you make a mistake. Like werewolf is more punishing if you make smaller errors than I think most decks in Snap are.
Yeah, I forgot about it because this was like 2 weeks ago almost, huh?
Yeah. I do feel that having played a lot of werewolf, this is, for me, everyone's experience is going to be different, but this is the easiest deck to use werewolf within, just because everything synergizes so well. And of course, you have so many different ways of projecting power outside of werewolf. You don't have to like fully optimize your wolf. You get your wolf to like a 9, that's probably more than enough, because you're also gonna have like a collector that's gonna be double digits, and all the cards that you got discounted. All right, I'm gonna stop talking about this deck because we're gonna talk about it some more, but I'm already kind of getting amped up. And before we get to the main event, there's just one other piece of news that I wanted to touch on, and you know, hear your reactions. I know I've kind of heard them already. Actually, I haven't heard yours, Nate. So it's the Festival of Lights bundle. This was data mined at the last patch as a $5 bundle with different amount of golden credits, with the cool Bast variant by Fiona.
Yeah.
Heish,
Yeah, I
I don't know
or
how to pronounce your last
I
name.
think it's. I think I've been saying Heish, but I don't know.
Heish. Anyways, that very unique art style, just really nice, really cool Bast variant. And then at the last moment, the values were changed to make it a 20 or well, it was $30 Canadian. I guess it would be what, $20 US.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, you know, it was data mined, so it's never officially, you know, at $5. You kind of have that kind of gray area, but it does set expectations for sure. And I think most people were disappointed about the price increase.
Yeah.
I think a lot of
I
people
didn't see
still,
anybody happy about it. That's for sure.
yeah, I think though a lot of people still bought it.
Yes.
Which
That's-
might be why the price got raised, right?
That's how they do it, though, right? It's like
Mm.
I remember with those Midnight Suns variants. It's like when they first did the art shop takeover. It was like, oh, that's insanely expensive, and then people like bought out the whole shop and were like, dang it, they're gonna do it again, because if people are gonna buy them at that price, like what, why not?
It'd be dumb not to sell them, right?
And
Yeah,
so it's not surprising. It's disappointing. I when they had the last Fiona Hesh bundle with Venom and Carnage, I bought it because I think that her artwork is amazing. The only other art that I've seen her do, and I don't think it's in game yet, is Death, which I really like.
It's really good,
right?
yeah.
Oh, cool.
I
I
don't
haven't
think that's
seen that one.
available yet.
I don't believe it is, but it looks amazing. And I thought, hey, you know what? This is cool. I don't have a Bast variant. I've been waiting for the Dan Hip one forever, and they just don't offer it to me. And for $5, it's like, okay, I can justify it. For those of you who don't know, like I got laid off, like, God, it's been almost 8 weeks now. It's been insane.
Has it been that long?
It was the last day. It was September 30th. It's been almost 2 months. Yeah, it's crazy. Looking for work like crazy, and so like money's super tight, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when I see $5, like I can justify, but like when it gets up to $20 for a variant, like I just can't do it right now. I mean, it's stupid, but like I don't have the, and then it's like it's Christmas coming up and my kid's birthday. Thank you. And so it's nominal, right? It's an extra $15, but it's like, well, I can't do it. I'm not going to do it.
So I should do it, but I did.
I want it, but it's like I just can't justify it, right? And so
yeah, and I think a lot of people fall in that boat, especially with the holidays coming up, and I mean I think money's tight for a lot of people right now.
It is. The holidays are always. I mean, for those of you who celebrate like Christmas or Hanukkah, like there's a lot of spending going on right now, and it, spending $20 on some NFT, right? Like, is it worth it? Like,
well, technically, you own an NFT. I mean, you might own a laughable. I don't even know what you'd call it. You don't even own this, right? It's
it's a license. That's how.
Yeah.
I love the artwork. It's amazing, and I really like it.
And the value is good in terms of progression. Like if you're someone who is looking for progression, it is a good progression value. It's just a shame that, like, every time we see one of these $5 ones, they're met with such universal praise, like the Arrow one, the Wong one, the Jubilee one. Yeah. And it's not, I just wish they would do it a bit more consistently, because it's an easy win that gets people to spend money and feel good about it. And it's not like they have to replace it's not like people are buying less of the expensive ones because there are $5 bundles. Like, the people who are going to whale are going to whale. Seeing a $5 one isn't going to make me be like, oh, I'm not going to buy this $50 one now. Like, I just don't think that's the reality. I think the people who are spending a lot of money will just do both. Because as we see, every time there's a really expensive bundle, even ones that aren't always the best value, like that Darkhawk one a while back, which was terrible value. I saw a bunch of people running it, right? Like people buy what they want, and they will still make money. So I think it's kind of like a free goodwill just to do more of those $5 bundles.
I bought a $5 one last. I don't know.
Because you don't think
was
about it,
like
right? Like it's a micro transaction. It's like
It was like
you're
2
like
weeks
what's
ago.
$5, you know?
Yeah, I think it was for like 1,000 credits and some other stuff. And it was like, it's $5. But like 20 is just, wait a minute. 4 times the
Yeah, it's
value.
like yep,
I
yeah.
mean, 4 times the price. It's just, I liked your
The Jetsons
gif, right? Like, it was so funny though. But that's what it felt like. It was like,
That is what it felt like, right? I woke up, I was like, all right, I'm ready to spend my $5, and they snagged the other 15 along with it.
it's just disappointing. Like, I'm not surprised, but it's
I wish it was
disappointing.
communicated better.
I
Like, I think
wonder-
that's a big part of the issue and why people are more upset. Like, this happens all the time where, we get an early data mine, people get excited about it, it gets quote unquote nerfed, which, but they're not official, right? But
Yeah,
they should be putting out like an official thing, I think, for the month. You don't have to do it super far in advance, but like tell me what's coming up for the month so I can know what to spend money on. And I know like people like to plan, and that's what makes people mad. Yeah,
that's agency, right?
I know.
We've seen that agency is what I think is going to happen as a direct result of this is they're just going to start, the data mines can be stopped at any time. They just simply need to encrypt the binary or the package.
They've said as such too, right? Like they
can
basically
obfuscate
said
it.
that.
Yeah.
Like we can turn these off at any time. We do them where we let it fly because it's kind of all benefit, no downside. But if they start seeing more downside, which could happen, and then that would really suck because if there are no data mines, not only does that like reduce people being excited for stuff, it makes things really hard to plan. Can you imagine if we didn't have data mines on the spotlight caches for like, a month down the line, 2 months down the line? Like it suddenly becomes a lot harder to plan. And then on top of it, that's kind of better for them because that gets people to more impulsively buy, or open spotlights in a given week because they don't know, I should really be saving for 5 weeks from now because that's what I really want. So I'm kind of worried that could happen in time. And we've just seen that trend of moving away from agency in favor of a bit more like RNG and FOMO stuff. And I would really dislike that because I think planning's like the one good thing we have left with like spotlights and bundles. Like it lets you like budget out and plan, how you're going to engage with the game.
Honestly, I also have really come to like patch day because the patch drops I'm usually working, but then like the mines start coming out and you get all this like new info. It's kind of like Christmas Day of announcements, and that would be an unfortunate thing to no longer have. But it's a problem because like you said, it sets an expectation. You have this like, oh shucks, it was never official kind of thing, which is kind of still feels a little bit like a bait and switch. Yeah.
You can't blame it on them per se, but it's still it doesn't make the disappointment
Doesn't make it feel
any
good,
less,
right? Yeah.
Where it's like, well, it was never official, but like, it's like, oh well.
Well, then maybe you should give us official stuff. Like that's the whole thing. Is like if it feels like trying to have your cake and eat it too a little bit, saying like, oh, none of the data mines are official, but when they're correct like 90% of the time, of course people are going to go off of that, and they should like, I don't know, that shouldn't be surprising to them when people are like, oh, I thought this was going one way, it went the other way. It was also like when the Dracula bundle came out, the values of that didn't change, right? But the timing did. And I saw quite a few people who were kind of bummed with that because they were planning on saving for it. They knew the week it was supposed to come out, and then they decided, well, it's more fitting with the Elsa season. We're going to release it 2 weeks early. Right. And some people who are, free to play or pass only, they didn't have enough gold by then.
I'll tell you what,
couldn't buy it.
If it was the other way around, it wouldn't have mattered, right? If they're like, we switched the date, but we lowered the price. It's like, oh, well, okay.
Yeah, if something
like
got
if this
cheaper, I
was
don't.
like
People would be happy. People would be celebrating.
right, if this was like this was supposed to be $20 and come with like you know, a lot of gold and a lot of credits, and they're like, yeah, we switched it up. It's only $5 now, but you get like a quarter of the gold and stuff. It's like, well, okay, but cool. It's only $5, but they switched it and it's more expensive. And I think part of it for me is just the time of year. Is it's a very expensive time of
Oh,
year.
for sure.
But whatever. It's a beautiful card. And I do want to say, we were talking about this pre-show. Like, I know we kind of sit here and complain a little bit, but like, this is the news. Like, if they give us some good news to talk about, we talk about it. But it's like, but the game itself is still very enjoyable. We all like it. We all keep playing it. It's fun, you know. And so don't think that our criticism is us like hating on the game, because we really do enjoy it, or we wouldn't be here. So
You just want it to be the best game it can be, really.
That's true.
I think that's
true.
what it comes down to. Like, I think that's it. I think
Let
if
me amend
you,
that. The best game that it can be at a reasonable cost for most.
Sure. Yeah. It's just one of those things where, you know, it comes from people's feelings, whether they're positive, negative, or whatever. It all comes from a place of like being invested and caring about something. And I think when you lose that, that's when there's real cause for concern, because like apathy, I think, is like the most dangerous thing in a card game. Is because as soon as people get apathetic and they start feeling not engaged or like just disconnected, not caring if things go the way they want or don't, that's when I think there's a really bad sign.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've got there yet.
No, and to maybe segue us a little bit, December 5th is going to be a red letter day in that journey. So we received an update via kind of an odd mechanism from one of the community managers or Discord moderators over at the
Yeah.
official Marvel Snap Discord as to what the patch and OTA schedule is going to look like for the rest of the year. And, you know, we've all been anticipating news. Some of us thought perhaps there'd even be a patch next week after Thanksgiving, but we were told that the holiday patch schedule is as follows. On December 5th, we will be receiving a full patch, and there will be no OTA until the next full patch, which is scheduled for January 9th.
And this is a change in what they said previously, right? When we got the Mobius patch back on the 7th, they said, "Hey, we're taking, you know, the November OTA off. We're still planning OTAs for 2 times in December, which were going to be, I believe, the 7th and then like the 20-something." They
Between
mentioned
Christmas
them.
and New Year's, yeah.
Yeah, actually, I think it was just before Christmas, but something like that. Like they said these are the plans. If they change, we'll let you know. And this is
And
them
they
letting
let us
us know. And so clearly they moved the initial patch back a week, right? Because if they were going to do an OTA on the 7th, that would mean that they probably did a patch this coming Tuesday, and that would have lined up with their normal patching schedule, where they usually patch about a week before the season ends. So it got pushed back, and now we're getting it on the 5th. But I think that the big, you know, thing there is no OTAs for the month of December, and the next big thing will be, you know, a month and 4 days after. So and also, you know, we got one OTA this month. It was just the Mobius change. So it's interesting to see how different the game feels when, you know, we're used to that environment of fairly regular. I mean, I Snap kind of patches more regularly than just about any card game I know. So when we're used to those like regular OTAs, whether they're, you know, impactful or less so, it gives you something new to mess around with, right? And now we're gonna see what it's like not having that for basically like 2 months.
I think the other thing that's noteworthy is that there's been a lot of messaging around where to expect game balance and where to expect content updates. Game balance from OTAs, you know, reworks and content updates from patches. Except then we got a rework in an OTA because they have that technology now. And then the last patch we had a lot of balance changes in there. And so there's kind of been a lot of messaging. So the first concern is, hey, it's a patch. There's going to be no balance changes, because those are typically reserved for the OTAs. This is my first prediction, and I want to just be very clear. I do not have any inside knowledge. I could be completely wrong. So I just want to set expectations accordingly. We're going to be making a lot of predictions, and well, we're going to review how right or wrong we were. I believe that this patch is going to almost be like a double. It's going to both be a content and a balance patch in one. I think that there's going to be significant changes contained within. However, I will caveat that optimism by saying, while I think there will be many changes, I don't think they're going to be the ones that some players are looking for.
Yeah, and it's good to mention that because typically these patches are locked in a month in advance, right? And they told us this, and that's one of the reasons why they missed so hard with Mobius was they looked at certain data when they made the change. By the time the change shipped, the data didn't really support making that drastic of a change anymore. And so they said, hey, OTAs are going to be our prime method of game balancing. The full patches are more so like, yes, you will see changes there, but they're not reacting to the meta typically. They're changes they wanted to make to the cards for X, Y, or Z reason. Maybe make, rescue a playable card or some other card that wasn't doing well, breathe new life into it. One of the cards I think we're gonna see changed because we're getting that upcoming bundle, and they talked about it, is Ronin. Ronan's been worst Devil Dino for forever. They have a fun little Rian Gonzalez bundle coming up for him. Glenn, I think specifically, has mentioned a while back that they had plans to rework Ronin. So it seems like a natural time for them to do that, and that's something they typically do in a patch, right? But like Blue said, they do balance stuff on OTAs, and that's why I would assume the reason they pushed this back a week and they decided not to do the OTAs is because they're just doing it all at once. They're swinging for the fences, and we'll see if they hit or if they miss. But they're going all in on it, and that's what we're gonna get.
Their footnote's a bit kind of foreboding as well. We're not planning an OTA on 12/7 unless we see something crazy happen. So I mean,
yeah, 2 days, that'd be kind of crazy. You don't even.
Yeah, but here's the thing. This is what scares me about it, because it's like, well, if they weren't introducing a lot of balance changes, if any at all, then we would nothing crazy would happen. It would just be more of the same. So this kind of foreshadows that whatever the resulting game is going to be, yeah, we're gonna have a new balance pass card out, and that always shakes things up. But we've speculated that there's been a big power drop in the upcoming cards, and we discussed it 2 weeks ago. And the only way that those new cards could really be at the center of the action is if the bullies of months past are no longer there to step on them. So yeah, I found that to be the kind of bit, I don't know how intentional that was, but to me that's a sign that December 5th, 10 in the morning Pacific time, the game's going to look very different than it did on the 4th. So
it might be a little later Pacific now, because I think they do it around daily reset time. I could be wrong.
So 11. Okay.
Yeah. 2 p.m. EST, I think, is when they do it now. They changed it a little bit, but yeah, I think because something else we've talked about previously on the show is that oftentimes the number one priority for them is to make things feel different and shaken up so things don't get stale. And I think a lot of people would agree that is like the number one priority. That takes priority over balance in some cases, I think. Like they're okay with something being a bit busted for a limited amount of time because they can fix it. They can rein it in, if it keeps staying that way.
Temporary meta.
Yeah, everyone's favorite term, temporary meta. But it makes changes. It keeps the game interesting. And so if they're only doing one patch for the month of December, going by how they typically do things, they're going to want to swing for the fences because if they miss, that's a pretty big risk,
December's got to be hard. Like being in management, like people want time off during December, and so you're very lean on staff. And so I can appreciate them saying, look, we don't want to make a bunch of changes during this month because there's not people here to make those changes, right? Especially towards the end of the month, like And so I can see them doing the patch on 12.5 because that gives them another like week and a half to like fix whatever broke, or undo anything.
Keep working on new stuff for like the January season or whatever because they're still working on this future content in advance.
But I can definitely appreciate like, hey, towards the end of the month, like, hey, we don't want to do it. And I imagine that there's a lot of people that, I don't know, their numbers. I'm curious what the internal data looks like, because either their numbers are going to drop because people are super busy, or they might go up because people aren't working, right? You're like home sitting around doing nothing, like, oh, I'll play some Snap on my phone while I'm waiting for whatever.
I bet they go up. I think I think you're going to get more players because, especially, I think Snap does typically. Uh, you may have boomers like us playing the game, but I think Snap attracts a younger audience than the average card game does, just because the Marvel IP has such a wide, it's such a wide net in terms of people who are interested. You have adults, you have teenagers, adolescents. Like it's such a broad group because it's such a strong IP. So many people are either invested in it or at least just familiar with it, right? And so you get people who, they're on break from work, they're on break from school, whatever. They're spending time with family, and sometimes you have some downtime, you're not doing anything. I think they'll probably see more people playing. I also think they're going to see more people paying because they're bringing back the whale enchantress type thing where they're giving you a bonus
God.
for money you spend on the game. If you missed that back in October, they did a thing where if you go on the Snap website, any money you spent, there were certain thresholds. And this is, I think, a generally good thing for the game because it's basically just free stuff. Like if you're like a pass only player, you still benefit from this. Is it a crazy benefit? No. I think it was like a few hundred gold or something. But it's coming at no cost to you. You're doing the thing you were already doing, you're getting slightly more value out of it. And I think rewarding the people who spend a lot of money on the game is kind of a positive thing for those people and a positive thing for the company. So I don't really have any qualms with it. It's kind of fun to, throw up a picture of Enchantress and be like, hey, this costs $200. But obviously, you're not just swiping the credit card $200 to buy that variant. You're buying a lot of other stuff and just happens to it's like it's a rebate. It's a bonus. So I don't really mind that, but that is coming back for December, and I believe they said they're going to try and do it every month. So
Huh.
I'm really interested how that's going to affect players spending. Are you going to see people who are whales spend even more money to, especially those few who try and collect all the variants? Are they going to be maxing it out every month so they can
The
get that
split
special
whales.
variant?
First one to
Yeah,
get a crackle on the whale variant.
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, and that's basically just monetizing cosmetics, which is something I have no issue with. I don't
No,
care
I
if they
don't
want to
either.
monetize cosmetics. I wish that would just supplement, the base game price more, but it's whatever. That's arguably the more ethical way of making money in mobile games is with cosmetics as opposed to game pieces. It's just interesting though. So, I think it's going to be interesting to see how that goes because generally, I think the bonus thing was received pretty well. Obviously, there was criticism about the variant, but the funny thing was like they offered like Enchantress and Magic, and those were both cards that were both featured in like very recent bundles that people liked. So it's not even like they're trying to get you with a variant that they didn't just sell a really cool one for less money. So I think that kind of stuff is fine. It's just
Oh, what
interesting.
if this just came to me. What if the whale variant in December is the Peach Momoko Thanos?
I don't think they're gonna put a Series 4 or 5 card as the card. I think they're capping that at Series 3. I would be surprised. Although, I guess if you're spending that much money, a lot of the people already have cards. But I'd be
Oh.
surprised if we see a card above Series 3 as the
I
reward
hope you're
bonus
right,
card.
because I want that variant, but good God, that will
Huh.
put me in
I
a
don't think they
bind,
put
because
Peach either because we just had the whole Peach month. But maybe they do because they're making up for
yeah,
not doing it this month, and they're cashing in on all the people who are collecting the peaches. So it could be. Who knows?
who knows?
Watch. It'll be another Kim Jacinto because they love putting his in
Oh
the
God,
crazy
no!
price
Please,
stuff.
no! I know. I love the Kim Jacinto art too. I was sad about the Enchantress one, but like, I just had to come to terms with it.
No, it's just it's a ridiculous amount of money. It's like it's way too much for your average person to be spending.
All right, so that's kind of the meta surrounding the patch. Let's get into a little bit of things we think we might see in this patch. I think that we have our lovely bingo card that we want to kind of show the different things that we're going to be looking for. But perhaps before we kind of dive into that, just more kind of the elephants in the room. Now that we talked about whales, I think that the things that people are looking for are changes to Loki, changes to Eliath, changes to Professor X. Those are kind of the big ones, I think. Of course, there's also buffs, but I'm of the opinion that nerfs tend to be far more
They matter
impactful than
more.
buffs.
Yeah, it's hard to make buffs matter as much as nerfs matter a lot of the time without like reworking a card, and the the tolerance for reworking a card seems pretty high.
So I personally don't have any real predictions for nerfs, not because I don't think that there's the potential. I just have no idea what they're gonna do. My opinion is that Eliath and X are fine. They've already nerfed Eliath. X
Yeah, I think they're leaving
is
them alone. I don't think they're
well,
gonna change them.
6-2.
well, perhaps. And as for Loki, I have no clue because they've been so reluctant to directly hit Loki, and then when they did directly hit Loki, they reverted Collector. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. I really don't. I even worry that perhaps maybe they do hit. Like what I think is going to happen, while I'm not going to predict the exact changes, what I do think could happen is that they'll hit something, but not something else. So I think a scenario that could play out would be that they do go after the lockdown cards, but leave Loki alone. Or go after something specific, but leave something that we've wanted changed for a while untouched, and we have another month of a meta tyrant being carried forward. I think there's a pretty
Or
big
even pushed
possibility of that.
higher,
All
right?
right,
Sure.
here's the logic. They'll hit Storm, and and then they'll hit Agent Coulson and Agent 13. There you go.
Just nerf around it, yeah.
I don't know.
Can you
I
imagine
mean,
the reaction people would have with that happening? Oh my god, there'd be riots. It would be funny.
That's a joke. That's a joke for everybody.
I mean, some people are saying they should just take the cost reduction off Loki. That kills the card.
They can't. Stuff should not cost less than 1, in my opinion.
Well,
because when you get these cards that now cost 0, that's a problem. Like it's the classic Hearthstone conundrum. So when things cost less than 1, like.
We learned this with Quinjet, right? In the Thanos stones. Like we've already seen this, and it was really quite baffling to me that I remember when someone basically asked them, hey, why does Loki get to have 0 cost cards but Quinjet doesn't? And the answer really, I was rolling my eyes pretty hard, and it was basically like, well, we like to be more careful on ongoing cards because they impact, the whole rest of the game since they come out. Whereas Loki's a one-time thing. But it's like, it doesn't matter if it's a one-time thing. You're getting so many cards. You're cheating so much mana. Like, consistently, they're playing double the mana that you get to play with on the final turn of the game. It's like, it's silly. It's ridiculous. And it disproportionately punishes decks that run 1-drops, right? Because they just get to hand dump all these cards out. So I think, getting rid of free 1-drops is probably a good thing, but I think you either have to reduce, like, get rid of the cost reduction entirely on the card if you want to leave it as a 4-drop, make them have Quinjet to get that benefit, and make it so that with Quinjet they're not getting -2 mana, or you just put them to 5 and say, hey, this is a Sarah cost level effect. The way they costed it, especially when it released, it's like they were factoring it. You know what it's like? It's like when they released Hellcow as a 2/6, and they were like, oh, the discard's a downside, guys. So it gets to be overstated. And that's like what they did with Loki. It's like, oh, the replacement's a downside, so you get the benefit of cost reduction. And it's like, no, it's not a downside. When I'm copying half my opponent's deck, I'm usually getting their good synergies, and I get to play them more easily than the opponent does.
I'd sooner see Loki go to 5 than Loki lose the discount.
Yeah, I don't
I
think they'd like
wonder.
that because of the wordiness, or well, not wordiness with the not costing 0, but yeah, I don't think they. I think
Well,
they
the
want to
not
preserve
costing.
the discount.
Yeah, the not costing 0 thing. I I don't know. I think that they just need to choose one or the other, right?
Yeah,
And I'm looking at a Quinjet revert if they're going to be inconsistent with this, but I don't know what they're going to do. The other change that we've been speculating about because of um, feedback from the question and answer is a rework. So this isn't
yeah,
a buff or a
Chavez.
nerf, a rework of America Chavez, which
And you know what else kind of supports the Chavez theory?
oh what?
The Blob. Blob is releasing on patch day. Blob is a
Oh
card that
yeah,
really likes America Chavez because
I never thought of that.
if you're playing a ramp deck, you want to get out Blob before the final turn. If you're getting Blob out before the final turn, you want to increase your odds of getting Blob, getting your ramp piece, and Chavez, you're not playing her often anyway, so just having a card in your deck that not only improves your consistency, but also adds 9 power to the Blob is huge. Like
Wait,
that it's
Is Blob gonna be broken?
you might be all right, but that's I think another reason why they're gonna potentially change Chavez in some way is because they already didn't like that she was seeing so much play in terms of just being a deck thinning piece that doesn't get played. But now that they're introducing a card that really benefits from that in the Blob, where he gets more stats. So if you haven't seen Blob, he can't be moved on reveal. He basically just merges the power of all the cards in your deck. Doesn't destroy. We know that merge and destroy are two different things from Hulkbuster, so it's not pumping your null, but it's going to just
But it
merge
is gonna
all
make
the.
Darkhawk weaker.
Yeah, this is an anti-Darkhawk tech, right? You just delete your deck. Darkhawk doesn't do anything, so that's kind of fun. I don't think it's going to be like top tier, but I think this is a fun ramp card, and I think it'll be okay.
Mhm.
But Chavez is going to have a big impact on how well this card does because Chavez is the perfect card for this because she makes him bigger, she makes him more consistent, and she just does everything you want to be doing in that like ramp archetype where you're running big cards.
So
Jubilee pulls him, your deck is gone. Yes, yeah, when he comes into play, he just merges your whole deck into his power.
That'll make
I'm
somebody's highlight somewhere.
Yep.
yeah,
But I wouldn't
it's
count on
gonna
it.
discard has been honestly I don't know how as a discard enjoyer, but like Apocalypse
Yeah.
discard has been showing good numbers. This will hurt that deck if there's a change to Chavez
It
that
would hurt it
reduces the power.
so badly. And not even just power. I think I mean, my prediction for it is I think they're going to mess with the consistency so that way you can get Chavez in hand before turn 6. I think they're going to just reduce the effect to where it's like can't be drawn before turn 3 or something. So
That
it's
would
like
be so bad. That
it would hurt, like, and it feels like a second dinner type of change, right? Because they like leaving the core impact of the card, but they like to introduce more low roll while keeping benefit. So like you'd still get the benefit of deck thinning for your first 3 turns, but now you have a bigger downside where you're paying for that in those games where you accidentally draw Chavez early. Now, maybe they changed the cost of the card, so she's no longer a 6 drop. Maybe they changed the power and cost because of Blob. I don't know. But
So there's
we'll
a
see.
feels bad that I want to talk about for a second, okay? And that is when you're in an intense game, maybe you're in an intense conquest series, and you kind of have everything lined up, and you're like, I need that good turn 6 top deck, and then you hear that like horn blow and like that Chavez
Yeah, you
animation, you're like, oh
forgot
yeah, I
Chavez is
run
there.
Chavez, like forget it. Imagine that happening on turn 3 or 4. Oh man,
Especially
that
with
is
a
going
bad
to be
hand.
tilting.
Yeah, that would be not great. It would be pretty bad.
I don't know if you have the sound on the soundboard, Nate, but that da da da, and then like the drum, the drum, the snare drum bang, and the card comes into your hand. You're like, oh crap! Like it's almost like I think it's gonna become. I really hope that's not the change. I joked that they
And
were gonna
but
just make her a 6/8 instead of a 6/9. Um, that's another potential change, but I think that you convinced me that if that was the case, they would have done it already. And now that your hypothesis around the blob has come up, you know, sounds likely. Also, we've talked about this off stream as well. It would be an indirect nerf to decks like Loki that use Chavez to make drawing the key cards like Collector and Werewolf and Loki more consistent. So again, you're kind of indirectly nerfing some of these decks that are very consistent, which again kind of fits in line with your keep the power ceiling the same but lower the floor due to variance. Yeah, so I think that definitely kind of goes in line with what Zombies was saying. And I don't know. I have a lot of mixed feelings about this one, and my reaction is I don't want to see Chavez get changed.
Yeah, agreed. I thought that, well, we'll see. I mean, it's I think leading back to our bingo card, right? Where it's like, well, it's one of these cards that they've been talking about. Well, we've been trying to avoid changing this, but I don't see Chavez as problematic. Chavez is patches, right? I mean, it's just to make your deck more consistent. But sometimes you play
it will be patches, right? Because
well, that's
before
true,
you
yeah.
never draw Chavez, right? It was like a Baku the Moon Eater you'd never draw, right?
Yeah.
Now it's going to be a lot more like patches, right?
Yikes. I hope.
Yikes. We know how much we love drawing patches.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think that I think the other card that's in danger is Professor X.
Oh, I know. I think so too. They just the lockdown decks are the people say it's not fun to play against. I want to play my cards, and this prevents me from playing my cards. And so I worry for Eliath and Professor X and Storm and whatever else will enable lockdown type styles, because I enjoy that archetype and everybody hates it. I hate playing against it anyhow. And
yeah, I can see why. Oftentimes, especially like when I'm tired or I'm playing on mobile, like I'll think, oh, I've got this one in the bag, and then they just Eliath me on 6, and it's like, oh yeah, of course, and then the whole thing falls apart. Or like the meme Eliath brain, where like you predict that your opponent's just gonna slam Eliath on 6. That's also kind of annoying to try and have to play around that. I don't know. People have a lot of strong feelings about that, and they've shown in the past that they're going to target feels bads, especially feels bads that kind of transcend ladder across the entire range of ranks, right?
poor Galactus.
They have shown that, which is why it's surprising to me that they let Loki exist in the current form, because I know not everyone's bothered by it. But I've played a lot of card games, and there are very few card games where I found that people enjoy losing to their own cards. And that's in games where, you actually have to, pay mana to play those cards. And you're not getting them at a reduced cost rate a lot of the time. And it's just not a fun experience to play against your own cards. And some of these decks, I feel like I'm not losing in the game, I'm losing in deck building. Like, I lose the second I see that Quinjet drop on 1, and I'm like, oh, guess I'm dumb for playing this deck I like because it has a bad matchup into Loki, because I like running efficient stats for cost, or I'm running Luke Cage in my Affliction deck, so they're just gonna turn off my strategy. It's without having to actually run the card themselves. So it's
Oh, wow.
I find that to be very frustrating.
When did that go up, Nate?
That's a good. I
I
saw that earlier.
it's from.
I didn't see this.
It's from earlier today. It's from this
Dang.
morning. Yeah.
Well, I think this sums up why I think
doesn't exist.
yeah, this is why I think those cards are in danger. This level of sentiment, I see it a lot. So I think that we're gonna have to see. So you've got a lot of very polarizing cards in one hand, and some ominous words about we'll only OTA if things go absolutely crazy on the other. Well, let's look at our bingo card and
yes.
Wait, one
Yeah.
more prediction. I want to get this prediction, and I guess I kind of did earlier. I think total rework for Ronan. I don't know what they're doing to him, but I think they're going to try and make Ronan a playable card.
And you think
I'm
it's going to
excited
drop
for
on
it.
12.5?
Yeah,
Okay.
because I have to check. I think that's around when the bundle comes out, And they have shown, if they're going to do a bundle for a card, they like to time it to make it, or, if it's a bad card or an underperforming card, they try and, like, make it better because it makes people more interested. Bundles. Trying to
Do
see
you
the
think that
exact date.
do you think that it will be reworked with the same kind of mechanic being in a package with Master Mold? Or do you think that
I think they're going to move away from the effect entirely. I think they're not going to like
wow.
the. I think they're just going to completely redesign the card because
So
I
it's not going to
don't
be a
see.
scaling big guy based on your opponent's hand. Okay,
That's
interesting.
my guess, yeah, because like it's just felt like worse Devil Dino that you can't control a lot of the time. So the Ronin bundle is December 1st through the 5th, and now you might say, well, that seems a little strange, right? If the patch is on the 5th, but what we have to remember is this date was data mined when the patch was probably planned for the 28th.
Right.
So that wouldn't make sense. And now, when we get the patch, it's possible that because we don't have any patch data, it's possible they slightly push this bundle to be after the patch instead of the 1st through the 5th. They could change it on the fly.
And what's
Uh,
the cost of this variant bundle?
it's a $15 bundle. It has the
Unless it
Ronin.
changes.
Yeah, it has the 15, or it's Ronin the Accuser, Rian Gonzalez art, just what everyone wants, an Infinity Conquest ticket, 600 credits, 1,000 gold, the avatar and the boosters for $15. It's not very good progress. It's Snapzone's thing says it's 143% value, so better than raw conversion, but not by a lot. For additional context, the Bast one we got was like 244% value. The Punisher one we have right now is similar value. Uh, yeah, so it's not great in terms of progress. It's not awful, but it's like if your main mission is getting the best value bundles, save your money for something else.
Yeah, but what if they make Ronin really good and you don't have a Rian Gonzalez variant of Ronin?
Now that would be a question. Yes, indeed. I hope they make him good because then I can put him in my only Rian Gonzalez art deck, which has
Watch
been
this.
very
They'll
fun.
make Ronin cost 2. That's how they make every card like forced into to play.
Yeah,
Let's
just
make
reduce one.
Ronin a 2/3. Just call it a day. I don't think they'll do that, but I like this variant.
It's cute as a little crystal on the hammer.
Yeah, it's we're big Rian Gonzalez fans here on the Born to Be Cosmo show.
It's true. It's true.
Hard to pass up on them. All right, well, it's a good prediction. I hope that there's some interesting buffs that go beyond Ronin. It's always fun to see cards that were previously unplayable kind of slot into the game in a playable fashion. And
Mhm.
Magic's a good example of something like that. So yeah,
Yeah, Magic's a
bring it
great
on.
example.
All right, so I'm really excited about this bingo card because we talked a little bit about some of the changes we might see, but we're not really certain what the changes are going to be exactly. Like, are they going to completely rework Professor X, or are they just going to make Professor X a 5/2 and call it a day? So there's a lot of different things that could happen, and as we were discussing what these possibilities could be. Zombies had an idea and Nate went to work. So let's bring on the bingo card, and it will be really fun to see if we if we get bingo.
For those of you listening to the audio version, you gotta, I guess, check Twitter, or we'll post it later, or check the YouTube, because there's really not a good way of describing this.
Yeah, it's like we could read it, but it loses so much impact because the visuals is such a big part of it.
The Born to Be Cosmo Twitter will tweet this out right after the show, so that way the Born to Be Cosmo Twitter admin, who's a goof, won't forget.
Oh wait, hold on. This is the wrong version. I fixed it because I swapped one card
Oh yeah,
out.
Yep.
You'll edit this in post too.
No, it's whatever. No, it's it's fixed.
It's just the
Oh wait,
Chavez
hold
one,
on.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just Chavez. Hold on. What did I do? I put the wrong.
And I think Chavez still fits. I think just not enough people are familiar with the Venomized Chavez, so we went with the card.
There, it's
people
fixed.
might.
It's fixed. There, I just had to swap out the art on the screen. It's fine.
So Queenie in chat asked if this was a game. So it kind of is a game. It's a twofold game. So one, it's just kind of our blanket predictions of what the changes could be, and we just threw them randomly on this grid, and we'll mark the card up when the patch notes come out. Might be fun if we do that in real time. Actually, just kind of thinking out loud. And then if we get a row right down, across, or diagonally, then we get bingo. And if we win bingo, then I guess we can feel smug and satisfied. Yeah, so we kind of just whip this up. As for people submitting their own bingo cards in the future, if we did ask for suggestions on Twitter, and we had a lot of really awesome suggestions. If this is something that people enjoy, perhaps we could look at expanding it the next time there's a big patch, which could be January 9th, because it will be a month potentially without any changes.
Yeah, it's when we were making this, kind of the idea was, what are like the general themes we've seen happen in the OTAs, like phrases, terminology, things that have happened. And so we tried to cover that a lot with this, and then pair it with appropriate artwork relative to the thing mentioned. And I think I'm pretty happy with how it came out. I think we got a good diversity of art and a lot of things that have a decent chance of happening in the patch. Whether it's just, phrasing and when they're talking about a change, or an actual change to Series 1 and 2 card, nerfing or buffing a card within 1 month of its release. I think we covered a good amount of bases here. So this is something people can look at really at any patch and be like, all right, am I going to get bingo? And if we get a big patch this time, maybe there's a higher chance of bingo happening if it really is a juicy patch.
Right. So before we start going through each one, I want to talk about the free space first, because this was for a behind the scenes look. This was the first square that kind of came up on the bingo card, and I thought it was so perfect. Having free space be 3x value with the Darkhawk from the 3x value bundle, like an excellent choice. Every time I see that, your eye kind of gravitates towards the center of the bingo card, and I see that, and it never fails to put a smile on my face. Well done.
That's really funny. All the things we have in quotes, like it's partially a game, partially a joke, partially us like crying because it's probably gonna happen. And so we're trying to have fun with it, but it's like, I don't know, you have to shake your head a little bit. So I mean, take it with a grain of salt, right? Half of it's a big joke, but we had fun making it. So
I do wonder if there's technology, like, I don't know if this is something that can be done, but it'd be cool if there was a way to randomize the squares except for the Darkhawk one, so that way people could have their own bingo card. But I don't know if there's a way to like automate doing that.
There's probably a website for it. Like if you have the art, like the squares, I bet there is, but like it would take too long in Photoshop to do it. But like,
yeah, doing it manually would be way too much.
If there's a website, like I could drop them in.
Yeah, we'll have to look into it, because that could be kind of fun, posting on Twitter and the Discord or wherever, and people get to pick a card to roll with and see who gets bingo.
I guess it's only going to be us playing this one time, although we threw these on completely randomly, so as we kind of thought of them up. So it's
there's no rhyme or reason to it other than just like we were like, what would be good things that we think could come up, and what's a matching card, and I think we have some pretty good choices here. I was happy with it.
All right, so in the top left, B, right, we've got a picture of the Wedding Kitty Pride variant with the title Reminisce on Old Cards. So I'm actually not too sure what this references, so I'll be educated on this one as well. This was the one that I think I was on the outside of the inside joke. So maybe...
Yeah, this was more obscure. I think this is the one a lot of people aren't going to get right away. This is really just in reference to, like, so Kitty Pride, she was a very iconic card. She was really busted. She broke the game. She got removed in 2 days. Everyone got her for free. But the way I came up with this one was just when they finally like hit her hard with the Nerf bat after she'd been. I mean, they didn't nerf Kitty for like a while. They did that one initial nerf, but she was still really, really good, so it didn't really feel like a huge nerf. But when they finally took the hammer home right before Elsa came out, They started it. It was like they were reminiscing about Kitty's good times. Kitty's been places. She's seen things.
Oh yes, I
Like,
remember.
and
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I feel like
She had her
that's
time
something.
in the sun. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're like kind of reminiscing on the journey she's been on, and that's what I was like, all right, Kitty's perfect for this because that's not something they typically do, but I feel like they did it with Kitty, and I'm sure there'll be another card
They could
where they,
reminisce on Loki like that because
yeah,
Loki's been like the
Loki's been
tyrant since
places, he's seen
September, right?
things the
Yeah.
last 2 months, and it's time for him to take a step back.
So
So
will a card be balance changed with a reminiscing tale of its terrorizing the meta for months on end as part of the justification? Okay, that's really good. I like that.
yeah, it was a fun one, and I think that was like the main one that wasn't super self-explanatory if you didn't like remember the Kitty patch and the context.
No, I appreciate that. It was helpful for me. I'm sure it'll be helpful for others. Okay, the next one I think is an easy one to get. A
Mhm.
bad card is buffed with +1 power. But I have to say that, choosing Owatu as the picture was very fitting. But you picked specifically the best Owatu variant, Chuwatu.
Mhm.
So where was the inspiration for that? Did someone buy Chiwatu that I'm not aware of for 1,200 gold?
So I'm sure someone did. I didn't, but
You didn't?
it's just his best variant. It's funny, and I think Uatu is a really funny one for bad card gets +1 power because when they initially reworked him, they made him a 1/1, and they're like, we're being a bit more careful with this than we would otherwise be because we don't like to mess with things in Series One. And then like 2 weeks later, they're like, okay, yeah, maybe we were a little overly cautious. Here, have another power, bud. You're fine. And it did nothing. It did absolutely nothing. But I mean, it's less bad when you generate it randomly, I guess.
Someone in the Cosmo family bought Chiwatu. If it's not you zombies, my next suspect would be Lee. Did Lee buy Chiwatu? I wanted to buy Chiwatu. It's so good, but
I'm
the
sure
card is
somebody
so
did.
bad.
Yeah, that's real bad.
All right, well, hopefully the Ronin buff is more interesting than +1 power, should they buff Ronin. So that'll be fun to see. All right, now center middle, we've got high skill cap. Oh man, that's a trigger phrase with a picture of the beast, the
Yeah.
Dan hit beast. So this one to me kind of triggers a physical response. I almost wince because it's been used in some patch notes in the past, but also it's just a common turn of phrase that a lot of people use, like, "Oh, Deck X is high skill cap." Like, nope,
People
really
said that
isn't.
about Bounce for months, right? And it's
Yeah.
like Bounce wasn't actually that hard to play. It was like slightly harder to play than other things, but not. If you went through the motions a few times, you understood how to play Bounce. It wasn't that complicated. So I feel like it became a meme where everyone, was repeating because people said that when it first came out,
Okay,
and
so
then it kind of
So
became a
just a
meme.
point of order here for when we fill out our bingo card to see if we win. So high skill cap has been used as justification for not nerfing something. So
Mhm.
if they for example say, "Oh, we're going to leave Loki as is for now because it's a high skill cap deck that kind of populates the top range of ladder," and they use it as a justification to not nerf,
That
does that
counts.
count? That
Yeah,
so we stamp
as
the
long as
card?
the phrase is mentioned. If
All
high
right.
skill
All
cap
right.
is mentioned for a nerf, for a buff, for leaving something alone, it's just the mentioning of the phrase, basically.
Okay, I'm only clarifying this so that no one accuses us of forcing a win, but also if we do
Mhm.
expand this, it'll be good to have this noted. So thank you for that.
We
Apologize
almost
for
put
interrupting.
Loki in that spot and then decided
Mm,
not to.
Mhm.
Um,
It felt better where he is now, I think.
Loki was tough competition for many of these squares.
Same with
I'm
this
certain.
next one too. Like the collector one, I think had high competition with Mobius too. It was just they both just kind of fit, I think.
Right. And I guess the context is that they were uh, too strong or too weak and had to be significantly changed to a lot of outcry. Is that kind of the sense
Yeah,
there?
it's like, well, our bad guys will do better next time, and I
Did
feel
they
like
say
that
that with the
happened.
collector?
I don't know if they I think Mobius was the main one, but I don't think it's the first time they've said that. It's not super common. You don't see it a lot, but it has come up in OTAs where like but the Mobius is the main one that came to mind recently. We're like, hey, yeah, we're gonna learn from this experience, and we'll get them next time, team. And the collector does feel a little fitting because man, that card has changed a lot of times.
Yeah.
It got
Yeah.
changed in beta. It was really OP in beta as a 2/0 that buffed by 2, and then it got nerfed to its, launch form where it didn't do anything for a while, and then it got buffed and people were happy, and then Loki stuff came out, and then they nerfed it, and then they nerfed Loki, and then they unnerfed it. So collectors, I think they've learned a lot from collector at
Yeah, that's an
this point.
exhausting journey. And right now, Collector is a really strong card in what I think
Hmm.
is the best deck in the game. All right, the next one is really funny, and I really like the choice. So it's buff then nerf, and
Hmm.
there's a picture of Snowguard. So I'm a big fan of the anime variants, and I had anime Snowguard in my shop before the initial buff, and I passed on it because like original Snowguard was terrible. And
Yeah.
then they changed Snowguard literally the next day, and I'm like, oh, I missed that variant. And then they nerfed her. They made the cards that she generates cost 3 instead of 2, and then she appeared in my shop again.
Hmm.
And again, I was like, is this should I get it? Is Snowguard still gonna be good? And everyone's like, it's just a Loki card now, which isn't really the case, but still. So I passed on it. Anyways, it finally showed up again, and I got it because I didn't want to go through this roller coaster of emotions, and that's why I spent $30 on a variant in Marvel Snap, or $30 of in-game resources, because they buffed and they nerfed, and it was still, even after the nerf, still in a good state. No Guard's an example, but they did that with the Collector too. They buffed him.
Enchantress is a big one. They made
Enchantress,
her a
yeah.
4/6, and then we're like, all right, well, we're just kidding, guys, 4/5. And so this is another one where it's like a bit more rare, but it has happened, and I'm sure it will happen again. Just a buffing a card and then being like, well, maybe we pushed a little bit harder on this than we should have. We're gonna take it back a nudge.
Yeah, the next one's cool because this opens up a lot of opportunity, but it's just a card nerfed or buffed within a month of their release. And I
Hmm.
think that this hasn't happened too often. Like Phoenix Force
Except
was an
September,
example.
where it happened to every card.
Yeah, but I think that there's some cards that have come out recently that are kind of fringe playable that might benefit from a buff, like for example, Black Knight. Uh, you know,
Sure.
um,
It's these
so
cards that we decided not to buy because they were not good, and watch they'll get buffed, and we'll be like, "Oh, cool, yeah, I don't have that now."
Yeah, it's a weird. I feel like it's always been a weird element of the spotlight system. I wish they would time better because I feel like they've had kind of unfortunate timing where I know they first started that with like Tribunal, where Tribunal was in the first spotlight cash week. People were like, "Oh, Tribunal kind of sucks. I don't really want this card." And then like the week or two after they buffed it, and I saw a lot of people who were like, "Oh man, I didn't know. Like if I knew this, I might have actually gone for the card. It seems kind of cool now." And I mean, it wasn't a crazy buff or anything, but I do think it's hard when you want yeah, the tribunal incident. It's hard when they obviously want, like, it's good they're buffing the card when cards aren't good or aren't playable because you want your cards to be playable. It just, the spotlight system can make it feel kind of bad because people aren't evaluating off of, you can't make your decision based off of, oh, they might or might not buff this card because you don't know. Like you have no idea if they're gonna buff or nerf a card or whatever. But and you don't know when it's coming back. That's another frustrating thing, right? Like the tribunal people wouldn't have been as upset if, he came back a month or two later and they were like, "Oh, he's changed now and I can get him and try him out." But no, it's taken 6 months for tribunal to come back. So that's I think the spotlight system makes buffing or nerfing a card so shortly after release kind of awkward, but
all right.
needed sometimes, as we saw in September, right? Where literally every card was buffed or nerfed within a month.
All right, the next one is a picture of the lovely Magic variant illustrated by or drawn by Peach Momoko.
Hmm.
And the title or the prediction is a balance change justified by opening up new strategies. So I guess this was in reference to when they buffed Magic to costing 3,
Yes.
which was a significant buff, right? It made the card fringe to being,
Played
Seeing a lot of
Playable, like
play, yeah, very
good
playable. Yeah.
card, and people played combo decks nonstop for like 2 weeks. It was kind of awesome. Everyone was just like, "Oh man, I can finally play Magic!" And long-term beta players were happy to get to use this card again. Like I didn't experience this in beta, but Magic used to be able to be played on turn 6, and it was a pretty toxic play pattern, but it's cool to be able to make the game longer as long as you're aware of that, before the final turn. So it's nice to see them do something because Magic at 5 mana was not playable. It was a tempo loss, and you had one turn to do it. If anything messed with that one turn, the card was unplayable. It just was not a good card.
I could see them using this language when nerfing Loki, because it is if
Oh
they
yeah,
so choose, because it's
this is a
holding back
nerf or
monster.
buff
Yeah.
language, like the high skill cap. It could apply to either.
This is one I expect will be marked. All right, gonna move on because we still have quite a few left to go. This one's feels very topical. Released 2-week with a picture of Ravona, the Dan Hip Ravona. Card releasing 2-week. Ravona 3/3, also released at the same time as the 2/3 Mobius. It's fair to say that perhaps Ravona's released
And Loki,
2
right?
week.
Loki did her mana cheating better. As someone who tried to make Ravona work, it was really sad when you had to do all these deck building restrictions to make her work, and then you ran into a Loki and they played your deck better than you did without having to include any of the cards. And then, yeah, Mobius came in the week after and just said, "Oh, she just got sandwiched." It was not a fun time to try and play Ravona.
Yeah, and even with the buff, which I think was significant, still kind of more of a fringe card. You see it in
Yeah.
negative and decks that kind of use a lot of those kind of asymmetrical kind of type cards that are usually high rolly, Iron Men, White Tigers, the like.
Yeah.
So yeah, perhaps one of the cards that were not so impressive upon release will be buffed by virtue of it being released 2-week. All right, the next one.
Crossing my fingers for 2099.
Oh wow, yeah, there you go. It's going to be in a spotlight too. So
I know.
a Rian, is that a Rian? That's a
It
Rian
is.
spotlight,
It
no less.
is.
Oh wow, another potential candidate. All right. This next one, not an outlier. Picture Loki, not an outlier. Won the Loki slot. I think I know where this one comes from, but this is basically justification for not changing a card that feels like an outlier because somewhere a data set that we just have to trust that we don't have access to, confirms that. So will a card not be changed because it's not an outlier? Will that card be Loki? I feel like
Or
this
they
one's
could
a
even
big one.
change a card and be like, well, it's not an outlier, but due to player sentiment, we're going to be
Oh
cautious.
yeah, right. Like for Eliath.
Could go either way, yeah. Like I could see them using that terminology if they wanted to nerf Eliath and be like, it's, the data says it's fine, but we hear how much people don't like it, so we're
Oh,
gonna
my
make an
poor purple
adjustment.
cloud is gonna die.
I actually heard a change for him that I don't want him to be changed, but I think if he did get changed, the only idea I've heard from people that I liked was making it only hit unrevealed cards. So that way, if you have priority, it doesn't really do
I mean, no one will.
anything.
The card, whether I think that's good or bad as a material, no one will play the card anymore.
Well, if it gets nerfed at all, it's gonna, even if it's still good. We saw, think about how many people were running it, and then it got nerfed, and it was still really good. And think about how much less you saw it.
Yeah.
Like, if people are just gonna move away from any card that gets nerfed, it's just what happens.
Well, this is a good segue into the next one, which is good card gets -1 power with a picture of Shuri. Good choice on that one. The Shuri nerfs. The nerfs actually the history of nerfs to the Shuri Red Skull deck over the months have been hilarious. And maybe they satisfy. Well, do you think if they made Eliath a 6/2 and a 6/3 that would placate?
No, people wouldn't be. I mean, people weren't happy when they did the first change, even though it was it was an impactful change in some senses versus like Jeff and Doom, and like it made a difference. It going from 5 to 3, especially for poor Cerebro 5. But it's still a very good
If
card.
you hate Eliath, you hate it just as much at 6-3 than you did at 6-5. No one,
For sure.
no one's like, this card was a real pain in the rear at a 6-5, but I'm cool with it as a 6-3. No one's gonna have that kind of
Yeah.
sentiment. So I think
No, it's not
the
common.
people that are complaining will continue to complain if Goliath becomes a 6-2.
Which is our next bingo card. Good card gets -1 power.
Right, exactly. So that's kind of and I think the Shuri variant. I think that's the baby Shuri variant is a perfect visual accompaniment.
Because they keep knocking 1 power off Shuri like every other month. They're just like, all right, Shuri loses 1, Sauron loses 1.
Yep.
Next patch, Red Skull's gonna lose 1.
Oh yeah, Sauron too. Yeah, that's right. There you go. I
Yeah.
knew there were more. I just forgot which ones specifically. All right, so we're at the middle of the card now, middle left. A Series 1 or a Series 2 card buff, and there's a picture of Medusa there, who got buffed to basically get +3 instead of +2. However, I wonder if maybe a picture of Elektra might have also been appropriate. Not because of what has happened, but
We're
a Series 1 card that I think
coping about
yeah,
the Electra thing
I think
because
we are too.
it would be fun though. The people, we speculated that they were going to change Electra because in one of the videos on the test client, she wasn't in the 1-drop slot, so people thought she might become a 2-drop. However, in one of the more recent videos done in the test client for the Marvel Snap channel, she was a 1-drop again. So they might have just been testing something with her that they aren't going through with, for all we know. I'd love to see Electra change though, please. That'd be cool. I'd like her to be better. But this Series 1 and 2 card buffs are kind of infrequent. I could see them buffing up the Punisher though, because he really sucks, and we just got a cool variant for him.
Well, I think it's more likely that we're going to see a nerf in that
Oh yeah,
card
Chavez.
pool.
Yeah, Chavez.
Yeah, Chavez. But I was actually thinking about X specifically.
I think they leave X alone. Because X on his own isn't.
So you're saying they would nerf a Series 5 card that's already been nerfed over a card that everyone gets for free?
In this specific instance, yes, because
Okay.
I think X is a unique effect that has proven to not be problematic for a really long time. It's not impossible, he did get better with Miss Marvel, so who knows? And if they do nerf it, I don't think they ever touch the effect. Maybe they just try and make him worse on his own and they hit the power, but again, that doesn't really... like Goliath, it wouldn't make people happy who don't like the effect. They don't dislike Professor X because he's a 5/3. They dislike him because of what he does. So we'll see.
Okay, well, we will. The next one is going to be one that's near and dear to the hearts of many of our listeners. Healthy for the Game, with a picture of Galactus by Kim Jacinto. And a lot of the cards that I think were scared about changing, like X or Goliath, it's like they weren't power outliers, but they're not healthy for the game, which, by the way, would cover two squares. So just as a point of order, if 2 statements are made in one sentence, it counts as 2. So yikes. Galactus. Man, when they nerfed Galactus from a 6/7 to 6/5 in its current state, that was...
Bro loses to Lizard.
That was something. Well, so I was playing a game.
I remember this.
And it was Conquest, and we basically made a judgment call that I was playing against Galactus because of how they played Wave, even though another card they played was really didn't fit the clues. And the only lane that was open for Galactus was far left. It was like turn 3, so I'm like, I'm just gonna play Silk in that lane, because if it is Galactus, then we're guaranteed to be fine. And sure enough, it was Galactus. A Silk played after a Wave is enough to stop Galactus in an open lane. It's like,
ouch.
Yeah.
It's rough for the big man.
I think that made my opponent quite angry. It was pretty downhill from them for there. But well, let's hope that killing one of those 2 cards, Goliath or X, is not healthy for the game. All right, next up. This one's a bit on the nose. shake up the meta with a picture of Jet Ski Mobius.
Mm-hmm.
Why the jet ski Mobius, Nate, over say the Dan Hip Mobius? Well,
That's the
what's
$100
possible?
question, isn't it?
$100.
Exactly.
So this
Oh.
is in reference to wanting to have Mobius shake up the meta and maybe kind of releasing him too strong, and the whole the whole fiasco that happened with the nerf and then the change. Yeah, jet ski Mobius. For everyone that bought Jet Ski Mobius, we salute you.
Yep, and you're minus 8,000 gold. It's rough.
All right, so next up, we've been talking about this card a little bit, but we have the upcoming Kim Jacinto Sauron with a prediction of a Series 3 card nerf. Perhaps
This
even
seems
Sauron
likely,
themselves.
I think. Yeah, who knows? But the Series 3 card pool, it's the biggest card pool in the game, right? So statistically, the
Still, even
odds
though
of you
everything's releasing into 5 and 4.
Yeah, I think if you combine 4 and 5, it's a lot, but I think Series 3, especially after, all the initial series drops, Series 3 is just the biggest pool in the game. So this should be an easy space, probably, because the odds of a Series 3 getting hit should be higher than any other card, given there are just more of them. But thought that was a pretty safe one to go for.
And that is a real sick variant. I think it's
A good
coming out
one.
next month, right? So perhaps
Oh,
those that
yeah.
are
Yeah.
thinking about a Sauron nerf, I'd remind you that a premium variant is coming out for Sauron. So stranger
Let's
things have
see.
happened. All right, the next one's perfect. It is in Shang-Chi range, which has recently changed. And a picture of the lovely Rian Gonzalez, Shang-Chi, one of the finest variants in all of the game, unlike Big Firehead Human Torch. This is one I don't think we're going to see. Looking at a lot of the cards that we want to see adjusted, none of them are in Shang-Chi range, so I'm not sure that will be used, with the one exception to America Chavez if they
Yeah, they
opt
could say
to.
Chavez, right? Where it's like that could be part of their justification in the stats if they change her like cost and stats, being like, well, at 6'9", she
You
was dodging
convinced
Shang-Chi.
me that they're not going to go after stats and cost, or they may in addition to a significant change. But
Yeah, I think they only do that if they do both. Like if they
yeah.
rework the card, then maybe it changes the stats and the cost. Especially because of Blob. Like Blob has made me a bit more convinced about that. But at some point, they're going to mention Shang-Chi range again. They did last patch, but obviously that's because they changed Shang. But he wasn't the only thing they mentioned it, right? Because they also changed, Warpath and the token from the location, the monster. So, and they've mentioned Shang-Chi range before, so we'll see it again at some point. But I don't know if it's going to be this patch.
Okay, well, moving on, kind of sticking along the same vein, make it less consistent with a picture of Soulstone. Wow, that one hurts so
It
much.
does.
Thanos is probably one of my favorite cards. Certainly, it's been the glue of many of my favorite archetypes. That one hurts, and I think that perhaps that could be a justification to the change for America Chavez that we were just talking about. It kind of dovetails nicely with in Shang-Chi range. So, potential for a horizontal bingo on that line. Yeah.
True
All
that.
right. Next, having a little trouble reading this one. Avoiding this change with a picture of anime Angela. So explain this one to me.
This is just something they say sometimes when they're hitting a card that they're just like, yeah, we've been thinking about this for a while, but we didn't really want to do it, and now we're doing it.
Oh,
And
they've avoided the change up until this point.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, they said that with Shang-Chi. I think they
Right.
said it with Angela. There's a handful of cards. They've just been like, we thought about this, but we really haven't wanted to do it. But well, now we're doing it.
The problem with doing this in Photoshop is that I only have 2 lines. Like the text space is so
Yeah,
limited.
Yeah.
That like when we
No,
were
you did a
drawing it
great
out,
job.
it's like we've been avoiding this change.
Yeah, we
comma,
were writing full sentences that you had to condense into like, yeah,
but
no, this is
dot.
really good.
Yeah, it's like, well,
Just,
how do I? It's
yeah.
your Chavez and Angela, and Shang.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm only asking if I'm not 100% certain because I don't want to misrepresent anything. So I love this next one. Another smile of the bingo card. Internal testing with a picture of Phoenix Force, the internal metagame tyrant Phoenix Force
Yeah.
that released probably. Maybe it wasn't the worst battle pass card, but
I
among
think it's
the
the worst
poorest
battle pass
performers.
card since global release. I think the only
Nimrod was
card-
pretty bad on release.
Nimrod was more playable than the Phoenix Force was. It
Oh, that
wasn't
is
great. It was more playable than the Phoenix Force was. I remember doing those weekend quest missions. I think the only card that was remotely comparable in terms of how bad it was like beta Nick Fury. But even that, you could at least be on the copium that, well, it's a 5/7 that's fueling up your hand for the dino. Like, this card is bad. And not only was it bad, I have a huge grudge against it because I spent like 2 or 3 hours trying to do a fun copy the Phoenix Force shenanigan thing, which was really hard to do, it turns out, when this card costs 5. And I finally did it, and I found out the copies of the Phoenix Force are bugged and can't move, and they're still bugged and they still can't move. And I now that it's a 4/5, I think there's actually a small chance whenever they fix that, it's gonna like break the game and it'll be funny.
Speaking of bugs, do you think that they'll fix Daredevil in the OTA when it or in the patch?
Probably
in the patch.
I think that's got to
so.
be high
Yeah,
priority for them.
I think so.
And apparently that happened, which I'm sure this happens a bunch, but apparently that happened because they were cleaning up something from a different bug in terms of, I think, like variants, or there was some other, I think they mentioned there was some other bug that they fixed, and then the Daredevil thing was kind of a consequence of fixing that unintentionally. But yeah, I'd be very surprised if that's not fixed in the next patch.
There's a Twitter account called Marvel Snap Variants that's been doing a fun game where you have to guess which card this is based off the little tiny picture.
The Daredevil,
yeah. It's all red and
fun.
blurry. And some are easier than others, but when you get into the variants and stuff, you can't tell what half of them are.
No, some are really, really hard to see because it feels like they get like more pixely or something. Like some just don't show in the Daredevil like view nearly as well as others do. And then sometimes you'll get a variant that you maybe haven't seen before, so you aren't like recognizing the character. Right. It's been kind of amusing.
It's been fun. I liked it. Yeah, it's been fun.
Next, polarizing with a picture of Goliath.
Well, some of these have quotations too, right? Because it's like,
yeah. Well, I'm reading them as though they all have quotations. I just don't want to be like the old man who's like polarizing, wink. I'm hoping the tone of my voice is sufficiently doing that. Yeah. So we've beat this horse to death already, but people complain about Goliath. People complain about X. We think those cards are okay. We have a bias, of course. We don't want to see them be changed. Some of us more than others, but I think all of us are pretty firm that we're happy with where Goliath is right now. So will a card be changed because it's polarizing? I don't know. We'll find out on December 5th. This is one that I think we're going to be marking with our stamp, our figurative stamp.
Yeah, I feel like it's likely this is going to be mentioned, especially if Christmas comes early and we get a Loki nerf.
Yeah.
Well, two for one.
Yeah. All right. This next one, this is a good one. Our internal data says, with an ellipsis, there are few more offensive pieces of punctuation than an ellipsis. So, for those who type, don't type out ellipses. You're probably better off for it. Anyways, there's a picture of.
We have two in a row too.
Yeah, I know. But I think they're both appropriate.
They are.
So there's a picture of Arrow to go with our internal data says. We have a Born to be Cosmo host that is particularly fond of the card Arrow. And I suspect Zombies, you're responsible for the art selection for this one.
That was Safety Blade.
Yep. Oh,
was it?
No, it was Safety. He suggested the Archer Arrow, yeah.
Safety says there is no other variant.
It's a good one.
All right. Well done, Safety. All right. Our next tagline with an ellipsis: more in line with. And there's a picture of She-Hulk, baby She-Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cute variant. I like that one.
Feels timely, right? Like they just buffed She-Hulk. Clearly, they're doing it because of the to support the January card. But it's also like, yeah, well, when they nerfed She-Hulk, it was kind of warranted. She was the best 6-drop in the game, pretty much. And now she's not, and so they're trying to make her more in line with the other stuff going on.
So we're going to be looking at some decks later if we want to go long, so we may or may not get to them. But I will say that the She-Hulk buff from the last update to a
It's been nice.
6/10 is probably one of my favorite cards to play.
Shang-Chi range.
True.
Yeah, despite being in Shang-Chi range, I really enjoyed playing the She-Hulk Evo deck to Infinite. But more recently, I've been liking these Moon Girl lists that run She-Hulk and other cards that we want to discount or duplicate. So that's been a good buff. Really happy about that one. I don't know if others feel the same. So hopefully they will buff cards to be more in line with general power that aren't seeing play. Like She-Hulk went from being not played at all to being a presence in the meta.
Yeah, I see way more of her now than I did, when she was a 6/9. That's for sure.
All right. Next is a series 4 or 5 card nerf with a picture of Elsa. Funny enough, while we were going through this bingo card, one of my IRL friends texted me asking if they thought they're completely free to play, if I thought that Elsa was still a good buy for 6,000 tokens in their current state. And I didn't answer yet because we're doing the show, but my answer will be no. I mean, for 6,000 tokens.
Probably not right now.
Especially if you're free to play, right? You have limited resources. Obviously, if you want, if you want the card or you think the card's cool, you have fun with it. The right answer is always yes. Although I don't want to get into an economy discussion, but that's generally the guideline. But if you're doing it with limited resources or you're looking for hitting a certain power level, no.
Yeah, she's just not played right now outside of Thanos, which is having a hard time, and some versions of Loki that still run kitty stuff. But I think those are, while playable, Elsa is not the reason those decks are doing well.
Right. So will there be another Series 4 or 5 card nerf? I think that Eliath is probably most in danger. Loki technically is still Series 5. We're hoping to see some kind of change. Those are probably the biggest candidates that might get this a stamp on this square.
Yeah.
All right, next. Oh man, this is like this. I feel attacked in this one. Not fun to play against, with a picture of Spider-Man in reference to Spider-Man's rework from being a lockout card to being, I guess, a disruption or a move card. Old Spider-Man was not fun to play against. Perhaps we may see a change to other cards that are not fun to play against, like X or Life.
I like how
you really think X is safe? You keep saying, "Oh, I think X is fine. X is fine." I don't believe you.
That's
just going off of the old comments is what
Okay.
makes me think he's fine. Is because people kept asking them if they're going to nerf X, and they kept saying like, we haven't viewed X as an issue because in a lot of the games, yes, it's really good when he works, but in those games where they guess wrong and your opponent plays in that lane, like, they often just lose.
I don't know.
So it's like,
I think it's like
that's kind of the gist of what but they haven't talked about it in a little bit. Like, it's probably like a month plus old.
I
So
don't know, man. I
could
think
change.
I think it's hopium. Like I feel
It
like
probably is.
I feel like lockdown is never safe because everybody.
It is never safe. This is, I think, the safest we've had it with lockdown, where they printed a card in Miss Marvel who was really good for it and encouraged it, and now it's like, oh, we're gonna reap the
It's not even good
sowed.
anymore. It's
still good.
Oh, it's
I
good.
think it's
good, but it's
not
good.
Loki good,
like
but
we
it's
talked about
good.
earlier. It's good because
I mean, I got an infinite
Loki
ticket with
pushes
it,
out
but
the cards that are good against lockdown. Typically, if Loki got nerfed, lockdown would actually, I think, get a lot worse. And that's why I'm hoping they see the light and they realize that, hey, maybe we can let lockdown continue to exist, and there'll be more counterplay if we just nerf the Loki deck that's pushing out all these decks that would normally be good into lockdown, because it's disrupted the equilibrium of how you like beat lockdown, which is stats.
Okay, so here's a question for you both. If one of the cards had to be nerfed, which one would you choose? Would you rather see X be nerfed or Alioth nerfed again?
Oh, if I have to pick between those two?
Yeah, you have to pick one to get nerfed. What would you pick?
I'd pick Alioth. I think. I mean, I think it's easier too.
Yeah.
Here's one for you, right? You take Alioth and just reduce it by 1 power, or you like there's
They
the
won't
nerf,
do
right?
that
But
again.
I think or it might be the unrevealed cards.
That's the
Oh,
way I think they'd
that
go
so
with
kills
that
it.
it forces.
Yeah.
I don't even think
priority.
it would kill it because it like the majority of the time you're using it with priority, so you're hitting the unrevealed cards anyway. I mean, it's a little bit of a screw you to Invisible Woman in particular, I guess. But aside from that, it's and I guess Ghost to a lesser extent. Ghost mentioned Pog.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think that if they nerfed it again, that'd be how they do it, where it's like, hey, we like this card, pushing for priority, but we want people to feel like their turn 6 plays matter when they have priority. And like that's just something I could see them doing to nerf the card while still keeping the intent.
Yeah.
X, I have no idea what they would do. I have
No, well,
genuinely like
they
they're
would
not going to
probably.
rework it,
You don't
and
think they
then
will?
no, I think the bar for them reworking a card is really, really high, and there are other cards in the pool 1 and 2 space which are higher
Spider-Man.
priority.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll
Because they
see.
talked about that when they changed Spider-Man. They were like they openly said our bar for reworking a card is very high because it's essentially the same amount of work as making a new card.
Is
But
Leviathan an upcoming spotlight?
I don't think so. He was featured recently again.
Yeah,
So I don't think
okay.
I think he's out of the Elsa
Mm.
and Loki are, but Alioth is not. Yeah.
Well, I really have no idea what'll happen. Finally, our last square, future buffs with a picture of Rescue. And well, I mean, your wish came true, zombies. Rescue got buffed because Shang got nerfed, I suppose, or reworked, however you want to
It's
categorize it.
true. Look, it's a bit of copium, but I've been playing Rescue in the Rian Gonzalez only deck, and it may only be improving grounds, but I was stomping people with that deck, and Rescue is part of the reason for that.
What is the
4/9, pretty
Rian
alright.
Gonzalez deck?
I'll grab it here. It's my whale deck where it's a lot of bundle variants and whatnot, but the whole point is it's
the
only
deck
Rian
12?
art.
Yeah, it's 12 Rian variants.
But it's like cohesive, like it actually works as a deck.
Okay.
It's like my
and
hip
it just
deck.
yeah, but it just got buffed because we got the Dakin Rian Gonzalez, and that helped fix the curve because a lot of the Rian Gonzalez cards are more expensive in terms of cost. And I couldn't
Yeah.
run Silver Samurai before because there was no synergy. But now you can curve out Dakin into Samurai, and that's pretty good as far as curves go.
This deck has Chavez in it. Is the Rian only deck, which this is gorgeous, by the way. This is stunning. Like
it pretty?
really, really awesome. But is this deck gonna get nerfed with the Chavez change?
Oh.
Do you have
probably
do you have a
is.
sub? Do you have like a card that you're gonna? Is that why you want Spider-Man 2099? Because you can maybe somehow make it work with this pile. Not really. I'm looking.
No, I have. There are backup inclusions. Basically, I'd probably just slam in a tech card like Rogue or Shang-Chi. Would be what I do if they really, really hurt Chavez. Because most of the other cards, previously I had Rocket Raccoon in there, but he was kind of bad. You could run Gambit as well for a little bit of synergy with the Dakin. But if Chavez is even like remotely playable, she's not going anywhere for me because Chavez is very, very good in this deck because this deck is a curve deck. You're just trying to play your cards out on curve and do the thing. And Chavez helps with that a lot because she just helps your curve.
And I mean, you have some decent tools. You always could like jam Shang-Chi in here if you had to, or
Yeah, but this deck really values being a tempo deck that's using
Right.
all of its mana every turn. So like, I think it would get worse without the Chavez if she's like very significantly hurt. But I've been really pleased with this deck. Like, it's not like some high tier competitive deck or anything, but if you just want something fun to farm Proving Grounds, this is good. The only downside is it's not exactly cheap when we remember, let's see, 1, 2, 3 of these are Spotlight variants.
one's
an
an
ultimate. Actually, 4 of them are Spotlights. Nebula, Ham, Dakin, Samurai are Spotlights.
Yeah.
Arrow's an ultimate. Rescue and Scarlet Witch were bundles. So like, oof. It's an expensive deck if you want these particular arts.
Yeah. Well, really, really nice. So will there be any future buffs that will buff this deck or others? That remains to be seen. So while we were going through this bingo card, Nate's been multitasking and made 20 different cards that are all scrambled up. So this is what we need to figure out after the show is how we want to distribute these cards, how we want things to work mechanically. So stay tuned, but I'd very much like to get these different cards out so that if anyone wants to play along with us, they can.
We have a little
So-
time, right?
I can
Initially,
put them
we
in
thought,
a Google Drive or something.
because
Well,
we
but
thought
we
the
have
patch was
to-
happening Tuesday, right? And now it's happening a week from Tuesday.
Yeah, well, we'd have to distribute them such that it would be one card given out. Maybe I'm spitballing here, so you'll edit this out and post like all the other blunders this episode. Of course, maybe we could even have a small prize or something for those that hit bingo. I'm thinking maybe I'll read through the notes, write down the things that we deem as judges to be selected, and then we can evaluate people's cards. We'd have to distribute it one per person. Of course, there'd be a limited number with 20 because
We could do. No, I can make more. There's a website, so
Okay.
you
We'll
just-
figure it
have to
out.
figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah,
Might be
we
fun,
so stay tuned. But there's I can break it out by basically it generates a random bingo. Like you import the art for each square, and then it generates it like it randomly mashes it up. So we could even do it
perfect.
individualized. Like I just did 20 and saved them, but like I don't care. We could. I mean, we could.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
That'd be
All right.
fun.
We'll figure something out. So that takes us to the end of the bingo card. I think that it'll be really fun to see like what they change. I think that generally we've been pretty good at predicting what was going to change and how it was going to be changed going into a patch. I feel like this patch, we're going into it with a lot of uncertainty, a lot of hope that things that we want to see changed will be changed. A lot of anxiety that if they're not bold enough, then we're stuck with things as is for another month. And if they're too bold, well, it could be a monkey's paw wish that we get what we wished for, change, but something even more oppressive. So stay tuned on how to play along with us, because I think that given some of the comments in chat and some of the other feedback that I've received, I think that there might be a few Cosmo viewers and or listeners that may want to take us up on this. So that'll be a lot of fun. So we've been playing quite a bit of Snap, and we had some decks we wanted to talk about. I guess I wanted to do just a quick time check to see if you guys wanted to review the decks or if you wanted to wrap.
Sure.
I think we can review them, but let's do a quick review. I don't think we need to do a
Yeah.
deep dive into each one.
Sure.
But we can kind of blitz through them. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean the meta is really dominated right now, just in brief, by Loki decks, bounce decks that run the Dark Hawk core with Werewolf, and lockdown decks. That's kind of like the big three. It's a very overly simplistic view of the meta, but I think that just kind of as a baseline, when we talk about the decks we're playing, I think that while they worked for us in specific contexts, if you're looking to win games, if your goal is to win games of Marvel Snap, be it ladder and or conquest, I think that right now your best choice is to play Loki. And so, if you're listening to this and you're like, well, that deck's good, but it's not good into Loki, or Loki will be better. That's right, it is.
Loki
But
is skill testing legitimately. Like we've been joking about it, but it's one of the harder decks to play, but it's also very, very good.
It's basically,
and it's not that hard to play.
It comes down to you have to identify the games where you're a Loki deck versus when you're a Shang-Chi deck, because that matters. And then I honestly think the reason a lot of people perform poorly with Loki decks, aside from like people making mistakes with the Wolf, is I think your average Snap player doesn't have as much experience with, all the different archetypes. So when they get cards for an archetype they're unfamiliar with, they're more likely to make a mistake with it, even if, the -1 or 2 mana reduction makes it a lot more forgiving to make those mistakes. People still do make those mistakes. I've seen it. And
It's
that's
not
at a relatively higher level, so I'm sure it happens a lot lower
It's not a
down.
good mobile deck either, I find. I find that I do well enough with it when I'm at my desk on my big monitor, like where I have my full attention, but on the train or whatever, it's not suited to that. But to skip into the decks we have been playing rather than complaining about the ones that I'm tired of seeing. Although if you run into me on ladder and I'm playing Loki, yes, I am a hypocrite, and
You're just doing your part, Blue. We're all doing our part
all
to
right.
get this
That's how it was
card.
explained
Right, I'm
to
not
me,
a
right?
hypocrite.
Like,
I'm advocating for change by abusing it.
Yeah. Hmm.
But when I'm sick of it, I've been playing a couple different decks. The first deck is actually a deck that you gave to me, Zombies, a Sandman Lockout deck, and sorry, a Sandman Ramp deck. Sandman aiming to lock out decks that play lots of cards like Loki. And this performed quite well because over 50% of my games were Loki. And if you ramp Sandman out on 4 against Loki, well, they have a bad time. And Arrow was fantastic in this list. Won so many games. The deck's a little tricky to pilot, and I think that it's probably better into Loki than some of the other decks. But
Wolf decks, especially, this deck is very good against the werewolf decks because
yeah,
most of the time they're bouncing on turn 4. So if you just wave or Psylocke or Lad into a Sandman on 4 as they're picking up their cards, they're usually pretty sad. They're usually very, very sad. And then the big question everyone always asks about this deck to me is, isn't Silk a bit of a liability? Because you're a Miss Marvel deck and you can get 2/2 drops. And the simple answer is, if you're expecting to play Silk or Miss Marvel, just always put Psylocke in the middle, and then you're kind of good because you can move Jeff as needed, and that's your only other 2 drop. So as long as Psylocke is in the middle, your Miss Marvel's usually good.
Silk really annoyed me in this deck, but the extra stats were relevant. So if you really don't like Silk, you can put in Lizard, but oh man, like
It feels
especially
bad.
and it gets shut off. Nah, it's tough, and you don't want to put in something that costs more because
No, it's very important. Like
you got to
the
keep that
curve of this deck is
equilibrium.
important because you're trying to get out points, or in like Ham's case, interact. Because you want to make sure you have at least one thing on the left and one thing on the right, so Miss Marvel's active. And then you get out Sandman and you close with Doom and Arrow, or sometimes Chavez. And it surprisingly wins quite a lot because a lot of decks don't appreciate Sandman, and this deck goes really wide because like Miss Marvel into Doom is really powerful follow up.
Yeah, it performed well. And
yeah,
I think that there's a place for it until the meta changes.
it did well for me as well. I got an infinite ticket with this. Actually, I played a combination of this and safeties like Miss Marvel Lockdown. But yeah,
Okay.
this and I had some tough matches into Loki, even with Sandman down, because
Yeah,
they
it's not
can
free.
they can
It's
play
hard still
your
sometimes.
cards cheaper, and so when they're playing a 5-cost Doom, like it's
Yeah,
irritating.
it can be rough. Hmm.
But yeah, I love this deck. It's great. I haven't had a chance to play Sandman in a long time, and I was playing this, and I didn't have any good variants for Sandman, and then one popped up. I think it was the like Nikolai or whatever. It's like variant showed up, and I was like, oh, sweet, perfect timing. And this deck is super fun. I like it.
The next list I've been really excited about. It's been performing very well for me, and I enjoy playing it. Is a deck that Den tweeted out a couple days ago that Den dubbed double up. And really what this is it's the Dark Hawk shell with Zabu and Moon Girl and She-Hulk. And the idea here is to tempo out Moon Girl on 4, try to get another copy of She-Hulk or Dark Hawk or Mystique. And then if you have Sunspot out and you have She-Hulk copied, you can skip turn 5 and then just go to town on 6. And this has been performing really well. Miss Marvel, really good alternate target for Mystique. these decks used to run Devil Dino, but Miss Marvel can really surprise if you play a bunch of them at the end of the game and in the middle. The deck just performed really well, and I really like the cards that are in it, and it's just it has good stats on Untapped. And I think that for me, anyways, it's not super difficult to play. It has very clear like snap lines, like do I have the good cards that I'm going to copy with Moon Girl? Am I not in an unfavored position? Snap, and that kind of helps when I'm playing a lot of games successively, or I'm mobile or something. So yeah, this has been really great, and I'm probably going to continue to play it. I think that these mid-range decks have been moving towards cards like She-Hulk and Moon Girl and Darkhawk because, like we said earlier in the show, if Loki takes these cards, my Darkhawk will be bigger than Loki's Darkhawk because I've been putting rocks into their deck and Widow's Bites into their hand. My She-Hulks will be cheaper than their She-Hulks because I can play more of them. And as for Miss Marvel, my cards will be appropriately laid out, but theirs may not be, so I may be able to get it. So the deck's very asymmetrical. It's very intelligently built into a meta that you have to respect Loki around. And sure, Loki can get all the pieces and completely like knock you over, but you have a good chance here that they won't. So yeah, highly recommended. I don't know if any of you guys have had a chance to try this yet, but I'm a big fan.
Yeah, it looks fun, and yeah, that's kind of the main reason Darkhawk is working right now is because they don't get as effectively, and you have the benefit of, well, you're reducing their chance to be able to get Loki in the first place, right? They get a rock or a Widow's Bite, and they have one less chance to get that powerhouse card.
Yeah,
And then
deck was super fun. I haven't. It's on my list. I haven't played it yet, but it's been on my list. I downloaded it and saved it to my like play this soon. So.
And then finally, I don't know if I included it or not. Binks tweeted this deck out. Did I include that or did I
Yep.
leave that out?
Nope, we have
I
it.
did. I'll be really brief on this one. It's very similar in terms of strategy as what we just saw, except instead of doubling up Darkhawk cards, you're doubling up Abomination and Evo cards. And the idea here is you want to basically play your scaling cards early. Sunspot, Nebula, Scorpion exists to discount Abomination along with Cyclops, and you want to double up Abomination and She-Hulk, and then kind of spam them all out on 6. So same line, just a different way of going about it. What I like about this deck is Cyclops is really strong, and Abomination, kind of has that same asymmetrical advantage in that their Abomination that the Loki gets won't even be able to discount because you don't get the Evo effect as it's applied after the game starts. So you get a lot of power that you can dump on 6. My problem with this version is that it's very weak to Luke Cage. And, depending on where you are on ladder, you may see more Luke Cage than others. Higher up where things are a lot more streamlined and concentrated, probably not as much, but lower on the ladder, very possible. Or the randomness that is Conquest. Rogue is a hedge against that. It's also strong into a lot of the ongoing with Darkhawk, etc. So Rogue's just a generally useful card. But that is a bit of a weakness of this deck in that it is more... it can be stopped by Luke Cage. But I also took this for a spin on ladder last night for an hour and change, and it did really well. I don't know if that was me catching people by surprise. I'd like to think not. Binks has a pretty wide reach. I imagine that a lot of people saw his tweet. I think the deck is actually just really good. Well, a little more time to play with it to really be as excited about it as the other one. But I think that these decks like She-Hulk, Moon Girl, they're good meta calls. These are kind of innovations that come out of a stale meta, and people are really cooking to try and break through. And while I applaud the innovation, I actually think that Loki's still just better to play. But these are good choices.
Yeah, it's true for most things. But yeah, this deck is cool. I played a similar version where I saw someone post it on Twitter, and it's like the core of the deck is the same, but
It's a little greedier, I think.
Yeah, it's a bit greedier. However, so you're going the magic route, which obviously that's less good into Loki, but I find it's great versus just about everything else. So that's a risk I think you're willing to take sometimes. Also, sometimes they'll Loki away their Snow Guard stuff, so you don't have to worry about it. One thing I have really noticed is I really would have missed the Hulk in this deck, and it sounds weird because you're like, well, we're kind of going in on we're doing the Abomination She-Hulk stuff, right? Like we don't need a Hulk if that's how we're going to be spending our late game. But one, the mirror, high Evo mirrors, I think you really need a big Hulk because they just outpower you. And then the other thing is sometimes, and this is also because of, running a Magic version, but sometimes getting Moon Girl into two really big Hulks is just good enough to win the game. Like what I like about it is you can go the Abomination She-Hulk route or the Hulk route, so you don't feel as bad if you don't happen to find one. Now maybe with Chavez you're finding these consistently enough that it's not that big of an issue. I haven't tried this version. It sounds like it's working well for Blue and Binks, so I'll have to try it. But I was very impressed with a very similar version that just put Hulk for Chavez, Magic for Rogue, and there was something for Wasp. I don't remember what it was.
So the thing is that I think
Oh, it
that
was Misty.
Misty
Just
Knight,
another
yeah,
good one drop.
right. You're going to be floating more because you have the extra turn, and that kind of
Exactly.
makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that they both have merit. I think it comes down to a preference.
For sure.
Right now, I played the Magic Infinite She-Hulk deck to Infinite, and I stopped playing that deck soon after because the number of Lokis I saw increased, and man, Snowguard is just, it's so bad because
It's real rough for
good
the
players
Magic deck.
will like they. It's almost like there's this unwritten understanding that it's like I am gonna have to play all my stuff out on 6, even though there's a limbo because you're probably gonna turn it off,
Yeah,
and then
you
I
have
play
to
my stuff
respect it.
out. They don't turn it off. I have to retreat, right? So it feels like the game is just basically a retreat, unless I want to play this game of chicken that I'm not in
You're playing
control over.
chicken, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of soured on Magic a little bit. And the other thing with this that I think is creative, or it's smartly built, is that there's no Quinjet in this list, but we don't value Quinjet
You
as
don't
much
need
as we
it,
do
right?
because we're just playing discounters. We're not playing scalers.
Yeah.
The problem is that we're not playing scalers. And so pound for pound, the other deck feels more Swiss Army knife general matchup because it's got that the Darkhawks can grow, whereas the Abominations are flat. I think the reason that you like the Hulk is you want that ability to scale on the top end, kind of like the way the Darkhawks do, and I get that. But like if you double, I guess, yeah, you could double Hulk and then
You just don't. It's just you're not usually doing
limbo it.
both during the same game. But I've found it's been nice having the options. Like I played against another Magic High Evo that was running Infinite, and I was actually able to beat them because they played out an Infinite. They had the Titan, so they skipped 4, played Infinite on 5, but it was only 19 power because it got hit by Scorpion. So they just assumed I gave up that lane, and I slammed 2 She-Hulks on the left to win the lane at the end, and then something else
Nice.
in the other lane. And it's I think the point here is that regardless of version, these Moon Girl high Evo decks are pretty interesting, and it's kind of cool to see a card that kind of fell by the wayside like a while ago, making a reappearance.
Yeah, this is also, with the exception of Nebula, pretty budget-friendly deck,
Yeah, that's kind of true.
as
It's
well as the version that you were playing.
Yeah, they're generally a bit more. I mean, that's always been High Evo's biggest strength, right? Is like if you're a newer player, High Evo gets you like a whole deck with like very little investment, which is I think a great thing for the game.
And High Evo's coming back to the track
Yeah, he is, isn't he? He's coming back. I
next
think
week,
it's no,
or the week after next.
first week of January. It's still a little
Oh,
ways out
January.
with
Okay.
Kyera and
Okay.
Hitmonkey, but
Right.
it has the comic book variant, which I think
Oh
a
yeah, the
lot of
comic book
people are going to
cover.
be
Yeah.
excited for. Those are pretty cool.
They are pretty cool. Yeah, so this is one that I'm gonna keep playing. So yeah, Dan, Banks, these guys are cooking lists. And not all of them might hit the mark, but give credit to both for coming up with very intelligent strategies that are, maybe not meta optimal, but certainly meta viable.
They work, yeah. It
They work.
gets the
Yeah.
job done.
and they're good for my level of skill. They have very clean like snap lines that make it less frustrating or mind bending to play.
Definitely.
That was me making a self-deprecating comment, but there's no shame in it, right? I mean, like I'm gonna pilot an easier deck better over a duration of several hours than I will a 5-head deck. I just get tired.
It's like the Sarah move deck we played like a week ago, and I
Yeah.
think KM posted that again today. And it's
Yeah.
like you can win with the deck; it can do good things. But man, out of most of the decks I've played, that deck is the easiest one to just accidentally fumble one thing with, and then you are just in not a good spot. You make one little mistake, and that's fine. But if you want to, win more games over a larger sample size, it often just pays to play a deck that's easier to play or easier to know when to snap and when to leave than a deck that it makes you feel really big brained, but you're not getting those you're not actually gaining much in terms of percentage points. If any percentage points, you could be losing them because it's harder to play.
Right. All right. So let's move on to the next deck. I think you added a few that you wanted to look at, Nate.
Oh
So,
no, you know what? I mean, mostly what I played. I only have one other deck that I played. And sorry, let me pull it up real quick. I forgot to add it, but it'll take me 2 seconds. I played the Sandman deck and I really liked it. The other one that I played was it was from Safety Blade, the Lockdown deck. It's really,
and that's a good meta choice too.
Let me just put it on.
He just posted his Martyr decks too. Oh boy.
Oh, wow. That must have been an assignment.
They're definitely Marvel Snap decks.
So here's what I did. Like this month was kind of weird with Snap. I played a bunch of like Hella Tribunal early on just because it's fun. It's stupid and fun. Until about rank 80. And then from 80 to 90-ish, like I played this Miss Marvel Lockdown. And then I played that Infinite She-Hulk, like High Evo, Infinite, whatever you want to call it, until about 95, like, because I just copied your homework. And then it just wasn't working for me, and I switched over to Loki. But in like Conquest and stuff, like I've been playing a lot of Lockdown. Has been pretty fun. So it's got the super scroll in it. I don't think it's the right call anymore, but it was good at the time.
Nate, we're gonna have a talk, you and I.
It was good at the time, Copium.
Got booted off the show. You just heard it.
Nate's been replaced with a scroll.
I am not a super scroll enjoyer. That card.
It's
makes me.
You know what? It's only in there because this was like right when Miss Marvel was released and everyone was playing it, and it's like, oh, you get two. Like you're probably better off playing Rogue or something different. But this is fun. But no, aside from that, I don't like. But Lockdown I really enjoy, and I'm still kind of like looking for the right build. I actually think that probably Sunspot is a better call, because there's turns that you don't do anything or you shut down a lane, and if you've got one of these cards in it, like you're happy. But yeah, anyways, not a lot going on for me. But I'm enjoying the game. I definitely got target marketed to. I got a custom Marvel Snap ad for Venomized variants sent over.
They show me the Rian ones, and I always get salty because they always show the Miles Morales one, and I'm like, it's not in game yet. Stop showing me this if I can't have it.
It's so funny, right? Yeah, it's a little scary. It's like, hey, wait a minute, how you know what I'm buying?
How do they know?
This shows up on my feed. Like, really? How do you know I got all these cards? Like, knock it off. It's creepy.
It is pretty funny. I do wonder how they determine, because I like the Venomized ones too, but I've never gotten an ad for the Venomized ones, but I see the Rian Gonzalez ones in the ad all the time. So I don't know if it's a coincidence and this is just, they're trying a new ad and I haven't seen this one, because I've seen the Rian one for like
I think you read
months.
too much into that. I get the Pixel one on Instagram, so I mean,
there you go.
Maybe they sorted by audience.
I'm a secret pixel enjoyer.
Yeah.
That's the only explanation.
I don't hate them as much as some, if that counts.
They're good pixels, but
I just
They're
don't
pretty
like
bad
getting them
pixels.
because I don't. Yeah,
I love it on the bundle that it says no pixels guaranteed.
yeah, that's really funny. They found a way to like market a product out of people disliking a different thing they offer. Because everyone has a bunch of pixels, right? Because you're statistically more likely to pull them since they're the variant with the most in the game. Like I looked through the other day, I think I have like 50 or 60 pixel variants, and I've bought 2.
We did the math on it in one of our episodes. We did the math, and it's. I thought it was going to be higher, but because there's so many variants, but like you have it's around 25+% to get a pixel. Like
Yeah.
just because I thought it was going to be higher, but that's still really high. It's a 1 in 4 chance of getting a pixel.
Because all the other ones are much
That's pretty
lower
high, Nate.
percentage.
Yeah.
Because like no other variant has nearly as many. The closest would probably be Dan Hip.
I think Dan
'cause he has a lot.
Yeah, is the next. But
yeah.
Anyways, good times. Yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of see where they go with things over the next week, and I'm sure we can come back and see how
Fill in
right
our
we
bingo
were.
card and see.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see how we score it. It'll also be jarring to see what the changes are. I'm a bit nervous. By the time we regroup, we're gonna have had this patch. We'll have had about a week to digest it. We'll also have had the new Series Pass card release, as well as the Blob. So yeah, I
Blob and
expect
time.
that we're gonna have a lot to talk about when we reconvene in 2 weeks' time.
Very quickly, next week. So next week we have Martyr coming out.
You're safe, everyone. You can skip that week.
I was gonna say, give me your 2-second hot take on Martyr. Zombies. Yeah, what's
My 2-second hot take is you should like Safety's tweet, so he has to buy this card. And I might end up getting it on accident because I might just gamble a cash or two for the Rian Spider-Man for my collection, and that could result in unintended consequences. Reminder: Martyr's a 1/4. This is the old graph.
This is the old 1/4.
Yeah. As she was a 2/6, I think she'd actually be a kind of interesting card at least, but she's a 1/4, so she's not. She's real bad. The only place this card is going to make sense is in like a zoo deck that's filling up the whole board, so it's just a 1/4. I guess that's cool. Zoo's really bad right now. I don't think that's going to change. Or one of Safety's cooks, he was running like Ultron stuff, so you're filling the board so she can't move, but you just have to jump through a lot of hoops for a 1/4 that will sometimes screw you over. And instead of doing that, I will play Nico in my deck, who is sometimes a 1/4 and sometimes, much better than a 1/4. Those are my hot Martyr takes.
I wish I had 4 thumbs so I could give it 4 thumbs down. To out my age as well with that reference. No, it's a 1/4. You could play a 1/3 with an upside.
Yeah.
Or like I just think that it's just not good. Also, are you really gonna open a chest like on that? Like, so I know art's subjective, but I think that's probably one of the Rian variants that I wouldn't be disappointed to skip. But also, like, you're never gonna, even if you liked it, like.
Look, they buff him, Copium. It's fine. They'll buff him. They'll buff him. They totally didn't already make a Discord post like 2 months ago saying, no, we're not going to buff him because we don't want to make him too good, even though he's trash. But I'm not gonna rip like 4 boxes for it or anything. I'm not. But I one and done it on the ham, so here's hoping that
all right,
works
I
again.
suppose you have a 1 in 4 chance of it happening.
If I was more limited on caches, though, I wouldn't do it at all because as much as I love the Rian artwork, this isn't a card I really play with. So, and I already have good variants for it, so I'll rip 1, maybe 2 at most, just to go for it for the collection. But I won't
Jean
be
Grey
sad
is
if I
pretty.
miss it.
It's a very niche week. Every card in there is
is.
very niche. They didn't like do like the jerk thing where they like bundle something you really want with a bunch of things you don't, like the Gladiator week. Yeah.
All right. Well, follow-up question. I know we got to kind of wrap it up, but let me just ask, since this will happen before we meet again. So here's first week of December. The pass card is Sebastian Shaw, right? Hellfire Club. So I assume
everyone's
going to
play Surfer for a week and then realize it's bad.
So are we going for Sebastian Shaw and are we going for the Blob? Blutrane. What do you think? I I mean,
I'm
Shaw
gonna get
will get because it's the season pass card,
I'm
right?
gonna
I
get
mean,
the season pass, but no, I don't think I'm gonna be opening up. Frankly,
the worst Jeff variant ever.
so here's the thing. You guys don't like that Jeff variant. I actually like it. I don't like it more than the one that I have, but
That's the thing. The existing Jeffs are a really high bar, and this kind of cartoonish style, at least for Jeff, doesn't appeal to me because it doesn't resemble like the comic Jeff or the Jeff from the other art. So it just feels like a bit more of a generic shark than what I know as Jeff. But I do like the art style because they have like a Shauna of this one, and I think it looks really cool.
I do like
I'm just
that
not
one.
feeling it for the Jeff.
yeah, I skipped on the Dan Hip Jeff because I didn't want to
Mhm.
open that week, and if I skip that, I'm certainly gonna skip this. I'm probably skipping the whole month, if I'm gonna be real.
It's kind of a
Celine's
weak
the most
month.
interesting card to me, and that might be like a week to consider opening because I don't have Black Knight. But like honestly, I don't know.
That's the week
It's
I'm
kind of
going for,
it's kind
is
of
the
lackluster still.
bottom week. Like, I might go for Blob for the memes, but it depends on how they change or if they change Chavez. I will say, I absolutely adore his spotlight art. I'm not going to go for it because that's more resources than I want to invest. But God, he looks so pimp in his Hellfire Gala getup. Like, I love the art on that card. It looks really cool.
The Hellfire Gala art in general, I really like it actually.
I'm
I
not
think
even that
it's
into most of it, aside from the season pass cards. I think are cool, the variants we get with the pass, but like it's not my favorite thing. Uh, but like I like that one a lot. It just happens to be in a week where I just don't want to open. Like I don't want a Stegron variant. I'm happy with my Jeff variants. Firestar seems like a much more interesting week to me because even though I mean, we'll have to see how the patch goes. I don't think in the current environment Firestar's a playable card, even though she's a card with a good effect that doesn't make sense in this meta. Because what's going to happen is you have to play a deck that goes in on turn 5. Most decks can't afford to do that. And then you're going to run into Loki, who Loki's you on 4, plays all your cards on 5, and then plays your Firestar and makes you really sad. And you're not going to outpower that. And although I want the card because I think it'll be good eventually with like Mysterio and like maybe this Copium brings back a bounce deck that's not Wolf related because you
Well,
bounce your one
maybe Wolf
drops
gets
with
nerfed on the
Beast.
5th, right? So we'll
Maybe,
see.
who knows? I doubt it. But you bounce up one drops with Beast, and then on turn 5 you play Mysterio and Hitmonkey, and then you close and your one drops for free, and then you close with Firestar. A lot of stuff has to line up, but it's a cool idea. And then I think a lot of people have wanted to get their hands on Man Thing too. Like use a card a lot of people thought was bad because Luke Cage was everywhere, and now there's a lot less Luke Cage, and he's been doing better, and it's that cool comic variant. So I might go for the Firestar week. Uh, Havoc week is really bad unless you're missing Nico and Legion. Uh, I'm sure somebody's gonna make this like a junk deck where you just give the Havoc away and it's gonna be really annoying.
Yeah.
But outside of that, it's not gonna do very well. And then, like Blue said, Celine seems like the best week if you like junk because she's a really good junk card. And I don't have Black Knight, and I kind of want to meme around with him. So like that's my favorite week is
yeah.
because it's 2 new cards.
Cool. All right.
Well, yeah.
There we have it. Now we wait and see how the patch goes, and maybe it'll change the context of how we're evaluating these cards. Because right now, I'm not seeing it for a lot of these cards how they survive in the current environment.
Yeah, it's gonna be the 5th is gonna be a red letter day. So until then, if you get into a heated debate with a friend or an online person, try and everyone's kind of really amped up by this, so try and be kind out there. It's our keep it Cosmo mentality. Try to have some kindness and compassion for the person you queue into on ladder. Yes, they might be playing Loki, but you don't have to miss Marvel thumbs them up 15 times because they're playing Loki. They're just playing the best deck in the game. I don't know. I find that I see a lot of that behavior in Snap. And I think that the mute all feature is like something that everyone's really requesting, but we're probably not going to get. So hopefully you do your part out there. And if it turns out to be a bit of a rough patch, we'll be here to talk about it and share our thoughts, feelings, and our perspectives. So until next time, keep it Cosmo out there.
Keep it Cosmo.
Keep it Cosmo.
Enough said, bub.